good morning, afternoon, or evening, and welcome to the Bloody Disgusting Network. The passage of time will now bring you to something strange, unique, and idiosyncratic. Have a good time.
My friendship to all of you precludes my involvement with any one of you. But if you wanna make love, then I do too, and I'll be right there behind you. All in the name of oh, all in the name of oh, all in the name of oh.
Greetings, constant listeners, and welcome yet again to the Losers Club, a Stephen King podcast. My name is Reverend Randall. He is rockin' Copeland, and I can feel the devil under my feet. Amen and hallelujah. Today, we are gathered here to give praise and perhaps a rebuke or two to Revival, which struck like lightning from heaven on November 11th, 2014. It is King's 58th novel. So that means this is what, the 58th episode of the podcast?
Definitely.
Approximately.
Well, we have probably even more book episodes because we've gone in the future too, when you think about that, which is pretty wild.
Wait, does this include like the novella collections or short story collections?
I don't know. That was my Jared Leto impression.
What if we only did 58 episodes in 7 years?
Hey, niche.
That's the most like fucking...
What are we, Serial?
Just, yeah. God.
Okay, before we begin, I have a bit of confession to make. It seems relevant with this book. So in probably 2015 or so, I listened to this novel via David Morse's audiobook narration, home of the iconic Sweater Nubbins, which I'm sure we'll be discussing later. Lo, these many years, I've told all of you that I finished it. I may have even bullshitted about it on this very podcast. Well, it's time to fess up. The truth is, I listened to about 60% of it, and then my Audible trial ended. I never finished it until now. I apologize for my deception, but it just seemed easier. I have made amends with the worm, and I hope you can all forgive me. On that note, let's meet our panel. My brother in Christ, Justin, say hello and tell me, do you forgive me?
This is Justin White Lies Gerber. And this is the most bizarre thing I've ever... This is like a weird Curb Your... I know it gets used. This is like a Curb Your Enthusiasm situation. Like, I don't understand why you didn't just say, oh, yeah, I never finished it. But I'm looking forward to getting to it on the podcast eventually. That's all you had to say. Who cares?
That felt like too many words.
But we've talked about it too much. So you've used more words than that over the last, 10 years that we've known each other?
Look, I would have kept up the lie longer. I would have just kept it going if the ending of this didn't hit me like a hammer in the head. Because I lied and was like, oh yeah, the ending's fucked up. But I didn't know how fucked up it was. I don't lie about this kind of shit.
I know that.
Swear to God.
This is why it's such a bizarre decision.
I am an open book.
Apparently not.
Like a Stephen King book.
I'll never trust you again.
You guys know this about me. God damn it.
If you tell me anything from now on, I'd be like, wait, you 60% right?
Revival situation.
60% done?
Justin, tell me, when did you first read this book?
I promise you this is the truth. I read this book in its entirety in November of 2014. So it's been about 10 years. And I thought, not to spoil too much about my feelings, but I think the reread of this went very well. There's a lot that's foreshadowed in interesting and disturbing ways that obviously didn't pick up on when you're reading it for the first time, 10 years ago. Yeah, everything's that much more. I was having my own prismatics reading this book again. So yeah, well, I read it when it came out for sure. The whole thing.
I hear another voice in the congregation shouting from the pews. Her name is Mad Mel. Say hello and tell me, do you forgive me?
Hi, this is Tagalong Mel. I wasn't even aware of the lie. So like Justin, I'm a little confused that it's like I've learned two things at once and they cancel each other out, and I feel perfectly neutral towards you, Rock and Randall. But I like using the podcast as a venue for some kind of spiritual confession. Let's keep that energy going.
Yeah.
And
I feel like this is a Morgan Spurlock situation where in coming out ahead of RIP, by the way, and coming out ahead of Me Too allegations and just like posting about it on his blog, he ended up just sort of canceling himself. And like he didn't really need to confess to these things. And so I feel like I've done the same today.
I guess I have a confession to make. Randall, you know this already. I texted Randall being like, am I going to have to fight with Justin on this podcast? Because I misinterpreted the meme that you posted on the socials that's like Justin starting revival and Justin ending revival. I thought that the face that Justin is making at the end was like a face of disgust and distaste.
Oh no.
And I was looking forward to like I was like, I'm going to be so let down by this ending. And then, not to give too much away about how it seems like we all feel about the ending, but that wasn't how I felt. And I was prepared to come in swinging, being like, Justin, what the fuck is your problem?
That was me looking for answers that maybe aren't there. That was the look at my face of just being
just sheer horror,
dulled,
which is a long way of also saying this is the first time I've read this book for this very episode. I got it from the library. I got a big honkin' hardback, and I had so much fun with it. I had such a good time with it. I was told ahead of time that it was, a standout of his aughts career. But I was hesitant. I was skeptical, and I'm a believer.
I love to hear it. We have a convert, and we have another convert.
Well, I have a question. Mel, are you telling the truth? Did you finish?
She read 60%.
Half of the time I tell the truth, and half of the time I lie.
Or at least 40%. Okay.
We have another conversion here in this house of God. His name is Mike. Say hello, Mike.
Hello, this is Michael Monroe Villamel Rothman. This isn't really so much of a Curb Your Enthusiasm situation as it is like you kind of reverted back to like going to summer camp and you just make dumb lies. Like I would just lie about the dumbest things. Like, oh yeah, I know how to surf because I knew that we weren't close to the ocean. So I'd be like, all right, I can surf.
But that makes you sound cool.
Yeah, I disagree. That's a really good lie.
But then it would, go into other things like, yeah, I can like cook this, or like I've watched this type of show, or these little small things like, oh, I've seen this show, but I haven't seen the third season. Or like, I remember like Real World would come up and be like, oh, I've seen most of it, but I haven't seen like Seattle or something like that, which is ridiculous because I had seen Seattle and I hadn't seen a lot of the other ones, but it would just be like weird backstories that I would create. So that's what this reminds me of. It reminds me of like when you're kind of just trying to create, a new identity for yourself. So in this one, I guess reading Revival was really imperative.
It was
for your survival here. Like
I caught a guy on my tennis team lying about him having seen Face Off once upon a time. He would lie. He lied about it for months, and then he like told someone else when I was around he hadn't seen it. And I said, "You told me you saw it like 4 times." And then he goes, "No, I didn't."
Yeah, see, like that's what does that gain? So the surfing thing, I agree. Yeah, it does actually gain some things there, but like. Yeah. Anyway,
I think it's because you're a validator. You like to see people happy, and so you're just like someone who nods and is like, "Oh, I like that thing," and then you're like, "Wait a second."
I'm stuck.
Yeah.
By then, you can't backtrack, and it's sort of a beautiful personality trait, but one that I guess you're trying to rein in.
We've come full circle here.
I have a more cynical theory. I have the theory that this is a book steeped in faith and religion. And if there's anyone that's more coded to talk about these themes, it's Rock and Randall. Mm-hmm. And for him not to have read this book means that, wait a second, this is, this is kind of like the ending of this book when you peel back and you reveal nothing's there. No, I'm just joking. But the thing is,
the truth is not what you expected.
The truth is out there though, and now it's here. But so I have been anticipating this book since
truth is here.
Literally weeks before this podcast started because Justin had lent me the book and said, you have to read this. This is a great Stephen King book. And then 3 weeks later, we decided to go back to the beginning to Carrie. I've told this story a million times on this podcast. So I was anticipating this. Yeah, full circle for me. I really anticipated this one. Let's just say I'm a little Nor Ephron circa 1994, a little mixed nuts on this one. So I'm very interested to talk about it. Yeah,
Co-starring
let's
Adam
ride the
Sandler.
lightning. Yes, co-starring Adam
I
Sandler.
like the image of Justin coming up to you like stiff-armed, like this is a good Stephen King book.
I'm
You
sure
should
he
read
said.
it.
I'm sure he said something like, "This is
You
one of
certainly
his
must
best."
read this.
There's no way he said it like a fucking
I
Sims
didn't
character.
say there's no way I
Like-
said it's one of his best. I did say it's really good. You should check it out. I definitely.
We are
give-
all
give
lying.
that
Like we
praise.
really started this off on a note of mistrust, but hopefully
I
we can
think
win
that
everyone back.
I think that's relevant to some degree to this book.
Yeah.
So on that note, let's talk about the history of this book in a little section we call the Derry Public Library.
Mike Hanlon, if you see...
Excuse me, sir. Do you have Prince Albert in a can? You do? Well, you better let the poor guy out.
Tell Mike Hanlon that I had to go, that I had to get cleaned up. Tell him. Tell him. Tell him I'll see him tonight.
Get out! Last chance, Doja. Get out! Get out! Excuse me.
So here in the Derry Public Library, we talk about the history, we talk about the history. So Revival was published by Scribner on November 11th, 2014. And that's around that same time. I want to give some context of the era. Joyland and Dr. Sleep were released in 2013, followed by Mr. Mercedes in early 2014. So this was an extremely fruitful time in King's career. And this is an interesting book, I think, to come amid right in the smack dab middle of the Mr. Mercedes trilogy, because the next two books are Finders Keepers and End of Watch. Obviously, there's some Joyland connective tissue, but otherwise, this is an interesting book to emerge from this period. Like if I had to guess when this book came out, like after I first read it, I don't think I would have guessed 2014. So I will say this was a big dry area in terms of Stephen King film adaptations. In terms of film in 2014, we got Big Driver and A Good Marriage, both adaptations of Full Dark, No Stars. Good Marriage, very maligned. Justin, you've seen it.
I have not seen Good Marriage, but I have seen the next movie you're going to mention, and it is awful.
Mercy.
Have
Were you
mercy.
yelling mercy during that movie?
Yes, many times. Or was I? Maybe only
And what is that?
60% of the time.
That's an adaptation of Grandma?
Yeah,
Okay. I've not seen it. We should probably do an episode about it.
maybe 3 hours. That'd be great.
Yeah, we could do 3 hours on that. And then that shitty Carrie remake came out the year before in 2013. So yeah, not the best era of King adaptations. I would say that probably in terms of adaptations, I think 11/22/63, the TV series, came out in 2015 or
2016.
maybe 2016.
Yeah.
So then I feel like that was what kicked off in some ways the Stephen King Renaissance, because that was a pretty well regarded and well done miniseries. So yeah, this was not a fertile era. There was a lot of dollar babies being made around this time, but and then in terms of current events, Republicans took control of the Senate in midterm elections.
C-RAN.
One World Trade Center opens, shades of 9/11. And then I'm curious what you guys think were the movies that were topping the box office in November of 2014. And I will say two people on this episode have a special relationship with at least one of them. So any guesses?
I'm trying to figure out what you're talking, what movie you're alluding to. In
Am
terms
I one of the people? Tell us who the people are.
Yeah, I'll narrow it
It's
down.
Justin and Mike. Mel, you
Wow.
probably didn't watch movies back
Wow.
What?
Discrimination.
Back then.
So it was 10 years ago. No,
then. You were probably
Um,
reading books or
Like
something.
what? They've got the talkies over there.
so they spin.
I will
really
say
fast?
On
it is a
Netflix?
movie that Justin and Mike saw together,
Oh, 20.
and you didn't have a great time at.
Oh no, I know what this is.
Oh, what is this? Fucking Dumb and Dumber 2? No, that was before
that's
that.
it. That's
Oh,
it.
Was
man.
that 2014?
Dumb and Dumber 2. That
God,
was.
God, I could have
God.
sworn that was like 20. I thought that was later. That was a rough night. Rough night. You wouldn't let me leave.
Mike was trying to pull a Randall listening to the audible version of Revival. 60% through, he wanted to go.
Great
And
call.
I said,
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember
You
telling you,
insisted
Mike,
on saying.
Mike tried to leave, and I said, "You can't go. You're writing the review."
I said I knew I have enough.
Oh.
I said I have enough.
That's right.
We're about an hour and 20 minutes into the movie. There's no way it gets better from there. And
I would never
Confirmed.
have guessed that Mike would be the one to want to walk out and Justin would be the one to say, no, you must stay.
We certainly must stay. And I've got this great new Stephen King
I
book
have
for
this
you.
good Stephen King book. You must read it.
You must
simply
read it.
must
Simply
read
must,
it.
dear boy.
Yeah, it was the fourth highest grossing movie of November 2014.
Okay.
And I will say it co-stars an actress who was in the #1 movie of this month, which is the third in a trilogy. I've given you a lot of clues
Oh my
here.
God.
Oh.
It's Randy's Mad Lib
Jennifer
out.
Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence, what is the movie?
Hunger Games.
You could just say
Mockingjay?
part 3. Yeah, it's
Okay.
Mockingjay. That was the #1 movie at the time. I never saw it. I did see the first 2. And then you're
I don't
probably not
believe
going to...
Yeah, seriously.
Well, I guess
Yeah,
that makes
sure.
sense if I've only seen the first 2, but because then the third one was 2 parts. So I've seen 50% of the movie.
I haven't seen
Wow.
I haven't seen part 2 of Mockingjay, although I think I did because I thought that maybe Sammy put it on and then she fell asleep and then I just watched the rest of it, but can't confirm or deny that. I just
Wait, so this means that
speculate.
between Mike and you, that's about 62.5% of the
Yes.
films were watched.
Yeah, I think that's
Interesting.
accurate.
Is that the one with
Okay.
Philip Seymour Hoffman in? That's still
I think
in
it's
there?
his last role, isn't it?
Okay, yeah,
That's tough.
that's a summary of life.
I will say the one that nobody here would probably guess is Big Hero 6.
Hey, I like that
Um,
one.
I saw that.
It's a good
okay.
I
one.
never saw it.
I'm going to let you guess the third one. Let's just say it's by a famous director who had a huge movie come out last summer. And this is a pretty, I'd say, a divisive movie, at least amongst this contingent. What do you guys think? Last summer, what were the big movies?
Oh, was it Interstellar from Christopher
That's
Nolan.
right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
Was that
Elizabeth-
Justin?
5 years ago?
We saw
Good
that
Lord.
together and you were like, no good.
I said great special effects.
Yeah.
Was not a big fan of Interstellar. Still.
You know, the kids love Interstellar. Every time I
Ugh,
have
I
a
know.
crop of interns at work or I'm tutoring, like Interstellar is their favorite fucking movie. I need to
It's-
rewatch it. I only saw it once, but
I saw it once, and it was just I feel like I get into this somehow in every episode of this fucking show about Interstellar, but
I think it's my
Love
brother's favorite Nolan
exposition.
film. But
It's
then
like-
again, he also loves Tenet. And that's like we get
Tenet
we get in
also
arguments
is
about
worst
that one.
movie in my opinion, but that's a
Yeah.
whole other story.
Do you
Never
know what
saw it.
was the highest grossing movie that year?
What?
Yes.
Dumb and Dumber 2?
No, it's my current obsession.
Chris Pratt?
Clint Eastwood?
Uh-huh.
Which
That was
Gran
number 1 movie
Torino?
2014.
American Sniper. Gran
Oh my
Torino.
God.
American
Yeah.
Sniper with the baby.
With the baby.
The
Yeah.
baby.
I
I've not
love
seen
it.
that
I love
movie.
that. I love that he got #1 over like filth, like Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 1, and Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and
Oh, Winter Soldier's better than American Sniper.
I never saw
Easily.
American Sniper.
I don't like
hard
American
to
Sniper.
hard
It's
to
fine.
compare across genre like that.
it's yeah, the Lego
There's
movie.
better baby
what a
work in
great year.
Winter Soldier. You know what I mean?
Look at these top
Justin
10.
demands
Maleficent.
top tier baby work.
How many movies do you think Transformers: Age of Extinction? Like, yes or no? That Caffrey. What's the over under actually on him actually of seeing that opening weekend?
I think that he might have seen this with Randall Colburn in theaters. Is this the one you
And
saw with him?
We saw the one with
Doesn't lie.
We saw the one with Merlin the Wizard. That
My
played by
fellow,
Stanley
I
Tucci.
assure
looking.
you,
I'm
I have not
looking.
watched one of these past the first one. So this could have been any of the 8 that have come out since.
It was the
It's-
one with Anthony Hopkins.
it's not. This isn't the Merlin one.
This isn't the Merlin one.
This is
Okay.
what you need to know in terms of history regarding Stephen King's revival.
Okay.
This
back
was
to the
Merlin
history.
and Age of what's it called? Age of Renaissance.
Is
I
that
have no
Mike
fucking-
wanted to walk out of Dumb and Dumber 2?
Transformers Merlin's Adventure.
I'd like to see that film.
The market ones. That's what it was. No, it's the Paramount. That's Paranormal Activity.
The market
Um,
ones.
Yeah.
When did Edge of Tomorrow come out? That movie's always on my mind.
Oh, that's 2014 also.
That was a good movie.
I
Yeah, it's
knew.
good. Tom Cruise.
Let's see
Tom
like
Cruise.
Transformers: The Age of Innocence. I think now we're kind of crossing over to Marty Scorsese.
Scorsese. Yeah.
You know,
Transformers
Edith Wharton.
Atonement.
Okay.
It's
So
just-
Revival first landed on people's radars in June of 2013 when King teased it during a video chat with fans while promoting the Under the Dome TV series. We have an episode on
Classic.
that. Scroll
Really?
back a bit. It was officially announced in February of 2014, and an excerpt was published at the end of the paperback edition of Dr. Sleep, which was published in June of 2014. So like Under the Dome and 11/22/63, this book comes from an idea King had as a child. when he found himself terrified by stories like Arthur Machen or Machen, I'm not sure. Don't yell at me. The Great God Pan, which also influenced which famous Night Shift story?
Oh,
Great
is
God
it,
Pan.
sometimes they come back?
No, Green Pubes,
Oh, yes, the Lawnmower Man.
Lawnmower Man,
Yeah.
and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Do you know what movie that inspired?
Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Yeah, that's correct.
Mm.
Okay. So it debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, obviously, but sold poorly in comparison to books like 11/22/63 and Doctor Sleep. It was out of the top 10 after only 9 weeks and out of the top 20 after only 11. For King, that's not great. So
I have a theory about why that is.
do you want to talk about it now or do you want to save it?
It'll be easy to say. Look at the books that are coming around this time. He's coming off of Doctor Sleep, which wasn't really that well received. Mr. Mercedes was also not that well received.
But they sold well. They sold
yeah,
better.
but I think that people are probably like, this is what always happens. If something doesn't do good, the next thing isn't going to do as good.
I have a different theory, and my theory is that it's quite meandering. It's bordering on literary fiction for King.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I think that's
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
they probably
definitely-
were buying like Jonathan Franzen's Freedom Land or some shit like that in 2014. It's still Obama
Freedom
term,
Land.
so like everyone's,
Wasn't that like a Hillary Swank movie?
No,
They
it's
were
like
buying that Obama Hugs People book.
Yeah, I'm gonna get canceled.
Justin's favorite book.
No, it's called Hugs for Obama.
Is that a real book?
Hugs
That's
for
a real book.
Obama? Not even hugs from Obama?
No, it's Hugs
Like,
for
he
Obama,
needs
and
the
I was very
hugs?
embarrassed.
He needs the hugs.
I don't know. It
Well,
was a
that's
very
what
tough time.
That's what he tried to do in his second year of office, is hug everyone on both sides of the party. Anyway, we don't have
2014.
to-
Okay. 2016. Okay, February 2nd, 2016, it was announced that an adaptation of Revival was written by, this is a blast from the past,
Oh my Lord.
Josh Boone. That is
Wow.
a man we used to talk about on this podcast all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
We do not talk about him anymore. He was for a while going to be the guy who brought King back to the cinema. And because he was all about, he had success with the Fault in Our Stars adaptation, and then all he talked about was adapting King. He wanted to do The Stand, he wanted to do Revival, and there was one other that I'm blanking on. But anyways, those were very buzzy sort of announcements. So yeah, he claimed that he had written an adaptation of Revival and he was working on adapting The Stand around this time. The script was being looked at by Universal Pictures and would be shopped around if the producers refused it. In December of 2016, Boone announced that Russell Crowe was attached to star in the film, which I think is cool casting.
Exorcist.
And then
Which one?
Pope's Exorcist.
Exorcism.
Oh yeah, and then he has another one called like An
Exorcist.
Exorcist. Okay. Why
So like Exorcism or something like that.
Oh, it's
isn't it?
Exorcism. Yeah,
Mel, you were a big Pope Exorcism fan.
Love it.
it's fun.
Can't wait for the next one.
It's true. It was
Which
a
is
hit.
somehow not the
Never
movie
liked
called
Russell Crowe
Exorcism.
until that movie. My mom's like obsessed with Russell Crowe. And I
How
was like,
could
I
you
don't
not
get it.
like Russell Crowe? Come on.
He's fine.
You've seen
until
the
the
fucking
Pope's
Insider?
Exorcist.
I am.
Oh,
Would-
I
would,
have
uh,
seen the Insider. Randall, you know who I'm looking at throughout the duration of that film?
Christopher
yeah.
Plummer.
Hooah.
Hooah!
I can't
Okay.
get you the interview.
It's cigarettes. You
You
can't
think-
beat big. You can't beat big cigarette, big tobacco.
Do you think?
Revival.
There's a bullet. There's a bullet in this man's mailbox.
You're selling lies here.
He's on the beach. I'm talking
Do
on
you
the
think-
beach on my phone.
Do you think Russell Crowe would have been Jamie? And like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little Jamie, but they they CGI
yeah.
like his
de-age
adult
him.
head
like,
on the
like
body.
a bowl, like a bowl cut. Just gross.
He's playing
fake
with
hair
ants.
on him.
Or no, he's playing with the sand in his army men.
Mm.
He said he would only do it if they put his band in the movie because he has a band, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, what's
Uh,
it called again? Like the Rolling
Dog
Thunder
Star?
Review or something like that.
Okay. On May 8th, 2020, Deadline confirmed that Mike Flanagan would adapt Revival for film in partnership with Intrepid Pictures. That July, Flanagan confirmed that he had completed the first draft of the screenplay, which was met with King's approval. However, he expressed doubt as to the likelihood of Warner Brothers greenlighting the project. On December 23rd of 2020, Flanagan confirmed that the adaptation was no longer in development, saying in conversation with Boone on the podcast, The Company of the Mad.
Which
Never
would
heard of
be-
this.
Well, it would make sense considering that Josh Boone went mad. that year.
Well, after the Mad Mutants or whatever that was called, I can understand.
The Mad Mutants.
Flanagan said, I stepped on the exact same landmine and ended up in the exact same place. We should get together someday and share boards and drafts and scars. I kind of hit the same wall with it where it was just so expensive. Man, did I love it though.
Don't adapt this book. Like, this is not meant to be a movie at all.
I agree.
I mean,
I rarely say that. I usually think there's a way through.
You know that, like, the coup d'etat, the creme de la creme of that script for him was like the fucking monologue where Jacobs is going.
Oh, he just wants to do the sermon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wants.
Yeah.
Just wants it so bad. He's like, oh, Hamish, I got you apart again.
But when was Midnight Mass? Was that 2021?
2021,
yeah.
I think.
I wonder if he incorporated some of those ideas.
Oh, 100%.
100%.
100%. Yeah.
Okay. So I have some quotes from King on Revival. He did a good chunk of interviews around this. And I also have one tweet, which I think you just like retweeted, Mike, on the social.
Confused a little bit of the listeners. I had stumbled upon it and I was like, oh, this would be a fun way to tease the episode. And everyone's like, what does this mean? I was like, just a book episode.
He's written a new book called Revival.
We're making a movie on Revival.
Yeah.
Okay, so the earliest quote I found was in June of 2014 from BuzzFeed. It said, as it turns out, King retains, this is the narrator, King retains the power to not only scare his readers, but also himself. He was cagey about Revival, noting ominously that it's too scary. I don't even want to think about that book anymore. When pressed, he continued, it's a nasty, dark piece of work. That's all I can tell you. So I want to keep that quote in mind as we keep going, because I think it's interesting.
Because I feel like we've heard variations of this type of a quote for many of his projects or other people's projects.
He's so good at self-promotion. This is, it really works for him.
But I will say in this instance, like, oh yeah, he was being maybe truthful for once.
I do buy it
hyperbolic.
in this instance, yeah, because psychoanalyzing him through this book, I can see what this quote means, because it reminds me of Pet Sematary, which I also believe him when he said he didn't want to publish that because he was writing about like dead children when his children were at that age. So I do believe him when he says that book freaked his ass out. And then on Twitter,
that book freaked my ass out.
It freaked my ass out. Sorry, I was doing Lynch for some reason. Okay, on Twitter, he wrote, if you're going to buy it, better tone up your nerves.
You break it, you buy it.
Tone up your nerves. It's also funny too because it like really doesn't, go off the rails until very late in the game. And I imagine people being like, "What the shit is he talking about?
My nerves are not toned up."
I guess heroin's bad. All right.
Rock and roll. All right.
Mike, why don't you read this next quote? This is from an interview he did with Goodreads.
The inspiration was Arthur Mashin's The Great God Pan, which is a terrifying story about the world that might exist beyond this one. Other influences were Lovecraft, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and my own religious upbringing. And I've been wanting to write about tent show healings for a long time. I wish it was just, and I've been wanting to write about tent show for a long time instead of healings, which I thought it was for a second. Makes sense. It looks like he got it all in there.
That's literally what I thought. I was like, yep, that tracks. Justin, I'll read the interviewer, and then do you want to read the responses in this Rolling Stone interview?
I shall.
Okay, so this was with Rolling Stone. This was kind of a huge career-spanning interview. We've quoted from it a million times because he talks about a lot of his books. This is this is the interview where he said, like, Tommy Knocker sucks because I was so coked out, and other famous quotes. But yeah, so this is him talking about Revival. When did you first get the idea for Revival?
I've had it since I was a kid, really. I read this story called The Great God Pan in high school, and there were these two characters waiting to see if this woman could come back from the dead and tell them what was over there. It just creeped me out. The more I thought about this Mary Shelley Frankenstein thing.
How long did it take you to write it?
Am I speaking to like some 1942?
Look, I have a character. I'm playing a character.
This is great. I like this character.
Yeah.
I started it in Maine and finished it in Florida. An actual book takes at least a year. A first draft can be tough. A first draft can be rough. And then you polish it. Take out the bad stuff. Elmore Leonard, someone asked him, how do you write a book someone wants to read? And he said, you leave out the boring shit.
Do you put some of yourself into the character of Jamie?
Yeah, sure. Jamie's a guy who gets addicted to drugs after a motorcycle accident.
And that's the end. I took a screenshot of this from from the actual thing, so I don't have the rest of the quote. But you get the gist. Okay, Mel, you're going to help me with this next one. This is from a lecture he did at George Washington University. People who are at our live show in Chicago, which is probably a very small fraction of this listenership, will know this reference. But Justin, the clip where I put your face on King clapping, the GIF, is from this lecture.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's
I
very
have so
famous.
much context now.
Wow.
Yes. So King's wearing a red shirt, a little too big for him, some jeans, and I put Justin's face on him. So, or at least I don't remember who did it. It might not have been me.
It might have been me, actually. That was when we were doing that whole face swap
the
thing,
reface.
Yeah.
Still use those images.
Yes.
Okay. So I didn't write. I had to, transcribe this shit, so I didn't write all of them. But he talked about watching the lightning hitting the castle in like old Frankenstein movies, and he wanted that kind of moment in the story. So I didn't write that whole quote out, but that was kind of the sentiment. And then this next quote, why don't you read that one, Mel?
I've always been fascinated by revival meetings, tent shows, come to Jesus kind of things. With faith healings as a kid, Oral Roberts, he'd put his hand on people's foreheads and say, "Heal in the name of Jesus." And they'd throw their crutches away. And I was fascinated by that.
Have any of you guys ever been to a tent healing?
I
I
haven't.
haven't found the occasion to, no. I know what it is. I've seen it in media.
Media. Mike, how about you?
The media.
Yeah, there's a place called Calverley Chapel down in South Florida, and it's a very terrifying place. No shots fired there. But yeah, it's exactly what you think. It's one of those giant tents that's in the middle of the field, cars surrounding it on Sunday mornings. Everyone goes and gets flapjacks nearby. It seemed pretty harmless, but I was only there once, so God knows what happened on the other millions of times they've had it.
Literally.
Yeah.
God knows. Maybe he doesn't.
Yeah, they're interesting. And we'll talk more about this later, but yeah, it's like I've been to a few myself, and I've also like stood, when I was in college, there was one kind of in the town square, and I wasn't sitting inside, but I kind of watched it from afar. And I remember there's always these awkward moments where, most people get caught up in the emotion of it all, I think. And they do sort of react, like even if they don't claim I'm healed, they'll like pass out or something, or they'll scream. But I remember this one time it was super awkward because the guy like did his whole spiel, and he put his hand on this person's forehead, and he's like, "How do you feel now? How do you feel now?" And the person was like just completely stone faced, and they're like, and then like the pressure clearly was on them, and they just go, "Well, I guess I feel a little bit better." And the preacher just goes, "He's a little bit better."
The first thought I had when going in there was that there's way too many people here for participation. Like, I get the clapping, but like the idea of like, all right, we're all going to come up. Like, you can't have more than like 100 people for communion. I'm sorry. Like, it's just going to take way too fucking long. They had like millions of people everywhere just passing out certain things, but it took like 2 hours. And I remember thinking that it's just like, God, like, because usually the communion aspect, at least from growing up, was like God, I can't believe that. Whatever. I'm sure my parents would love this. It was 20 minutes. It was like 20 minutes tops. And then we'd all joke around and be like, are you going to get the wine? Are you going to drink the wine? And it was done in 20 minutes. But yeah, this would go on forever. And I can't believe people do this every fucking weekend. And it's just like, God, it's like it is a whole day affair. It's like,
yeah,
it's too much. It's too much. Yeah.
Okay. And then this next quote, Justin, do you want to read that? This is from the same lecture.
Oh, this part. Okay, gotcha.
The last quote there.
I also wanted to write about rock and roll. I'd never found a way to write about it. There are some things that are impossible to write about unless you come at them from the side.
And we'll talk more about that later when we talk about Jamie specifically, because King talks more about writing, about how this book was an excuse for him to write about rock. And I'm genuinely very excited to hear some of your takes on that. Especially since we come from music writing backgrounds. Mike, you did the last Goodreads interview. Why don't you read this one as well?
Sure. Revival gave me a way to write about rock and roll without being preachy or boring. Through Jamie, I had a chance to talk about how important rock is to me and how it lifted my life.
All right. I'll be interested to hear if anybody thinks it was preachy or boring later. So Bangor Daily News did a big interview with him, and he talked about his use of carnivals because he had just written Joyland. He talks about that here. He says, "I just like carnivals. I like that whole atmosphere. People selling stuff that's a little bit on the sketchy side. Then I wrote Joyland, which was about carnivals. And I started to think about the relationship between carnies and the revival circuit. And I'd always wanted to write the story about the revival circuit and about somebody who was a healer on that circuit. Back to Goodreads. Mike, read this one.
He says like a wanted to a lot. Like his entrance into this book, pretty all over the place. But
oh yeah,
yeah.
There's a lot of. It felt like every interview he's talking about different stuff.
Well, I wanted to write a balls to the wall supernatural horror story, something I haven't done in a long time. I also wanted to use Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos, but in a new fashion, if I could, stripping away Lovecraft's high-flown language, which I appreciated. Yeah, all these things he set out to do, he did.
Yeah,
to his credit, So,
yeah. But in the Bangor Daily News, Mel, will you read this first quote from the Bangor Daily News?
When I started Salem's Lot, I thought to myself, well, this will be the opposite of Dracula, where the good guys win. In this book, the good guys are going to lose, and everybody's going to become a vampire at the end of the book. And that didn't happen, because you go where the book leads you. And this one just led me into a very dark place. I don't even want to go there. I want people to find it out for themselves.
Justin, will you read the second Bangor Daily News quote here?
I think that one of the things behind Revival was for people who really like books like Pet Sematary and The Shining. I really wanted to see if I could still bring a real scare to people and write the sort of book that people would say, it's a great story, but it scared the hell out of me and I had to keep the lights on. I was sort of aiming for that in particular.
Yeah, so I like this. I wanted to put all these quotes in this way and break them up because when you go through them, he's basically saying, with Revival, I wanted to write about tent show healings, my religious upbringing, Cthulhu, The Great God Pan, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, all these books that inspired him when he was young. He also wanted to write about rock and roll, and he also wanted to write about carnivals, and he also wanted to write something that was scary in the same way as his old stuff. Oh, and then also Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos, which he's done before, notably in stories like Crouch End. I think it's maybe most successful in this book, but we can talk about that later. And then one last quote here. Goodreads, Mike, why don't you read this?
His publisher, Nan Graham, what a great name, said that upon reading it, I asked Steve whether it really had to be this dark, knowing before he had answered that, yes, it does.
Then why'd you ask him, Nan?
I know.
That's not true.
Does it have to be this dark? Don't answer.
All this stuff's bullshit.
Yes,
Yeah,
Nan.
I'm doing my
last time, Nan.
If I could do a Cartman voice, I would say it in the way. This is all bullshit. Okay. Critics on Revival. I want to read some reviews here. A lot of very positive ones, but the negative one I think that I pulled, I think has some good points in it. And so I'm saving that for last. I'll start with this quote from The Independent. They said, Revival, which practically screams return to form, opens strongly. The first part in which Jamie recalls his childhood is simply superb. His portrait of the close-knit Mortons is classic King, intimate, readable, and convincing. As with 11/22/63, nostalgia vies with hints of evil. These next two quotes are from The Guardian. Justin, will you read the first one?
But what resonates in Revival are the little moments of an ordinary life, rather than the grand and terrible portents of disaster.
Mel, will you read the second one?
There are few writers able so effortlessly, so naturally, and so intimately to lay out the details of a life. Perhaps that's why, when the book begins to slide away from our reality, we're happy to follow where Jamie leads. We've been tricked, just like our narrator, into forgetting just what kind of a book this promised to be.
I think that's an interesting thing to keep in mind. Mike, will you read this quote from the New York Times' Danielle Chersoni?
Reading Revival is experiencing a master storyteller having the time of his life. All of his favorite fictional elements are at play. Small town Maine, the supernatural, the evil genius, the obsessive addict, power of belief to transform a life. King even plays games with his characters' names, calling one character Shelley, another Victor, and another Mary, recasting his inspirations, Mary Shelley, Victor Frankenstein, into his own fictional universe. Of course, if you've read If You Like It Darker, his new book, he still does this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's probably his most blunt version that anyway.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did you guys catch those names?
I
Yes.
don't think I did.
I did not.
Oh, I did that. Yeah, I've got for the room 237 later on. Yeah.
Oh, hey, spoiler. Okay. Janet Maslin, old friend of Stephen King. I remember reading her very enthusiastic review of Under the Dome around the same time of that book's release. She did a big event with him, and they still retweet each other on the old social
Twitter
media.
buddies.
So yeah. So she's a big King supporter, and she said this about this book. Mr. King has the wind at his back again. He hit the doldrums with Dr. Sleep, his sequel to The Shining, and Duma Key seemed to have more to do with his spending time in the part of Florida the book describes than with any burning need to tell a story. Shots fired. But the trifecta of Joyland, Mr. Mercedes, and now Revival, the best of the bunch, finds him writing with the infectious glee that has always been at the heart of his popular success. Revival winds up with the idea that to be human, you must know what it is to be inhuman, and to know that only this thin partition separates that horror from ordinary life. So it's not just a book that delivers its share of jolts and then lets the reader walk away unscathed. Older and wiser each time he writes, Mr. King has moved on from the physical fear that haunted him after he was struck by a van while out walking to a more metaphysical, universal terror. He writes about things so inevitable that he speaks to us all.
That's a little spoilery there. Why did she have to mention that about what separates us from the horror? Anyway.
It might only be a spoiler because you've read the book. You know what I mean? Because you know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think her writing about this book is actually pretty interesting. I have another quote from her later when we're going to talk about characters. Okay, these last ones are all from this negative review from the AV Club. Mel, will you read this for us? And these are 3 separate quotes that I've separated so that are throughout the review. So why don't you read the first one and then I'll assign the rest.
For much of its length, Revival doesn't feel like a novel as much as it does a narrative experiment written as a character who's novel adjacent, as if the entire Harry Potter saga was told from the point of Neville Longbottom, who occasionally gets dragged into the story for a scene or two, but mostly stands around in the background, wondering where everyone's running off to this time.
Justin, read the next one.
Virtually all of Revival is a slow build that sometimes feels suspiciously like a Shaggy Dog story, one which may not have a punchline.
And Mike, read this third one.
Beyond that, Revival's primary issue is one that's plagued King recently, particularly in his Shining sequel, Dr. Sleep. He skims across many of the biggest events in Jamie's life, robbing them of their impact. The accident that led him to addiction, or the tragic death of one of his siblings, aren't part of King's agenda for Revival's final plot developments, but they're among the most significant events in the protagonist's life, and it weakens the story to have Jamie bring them up only after the fact, in a few bare sentences apiece, especially since the book focuses so much time on comparative trivia and loose plot threads. Similarly, there's a sense throughout the novel that the really important action is almost always happening elsewhere, and that's much more interesting than Jamie's skimmed-over adventures in the music trade.
I'll read this last part. King constructed the book as a calculated tease, though mostly dangling a taste of what's going on in the main story over readers' heads. The structure has a powerful effect as a withholding technique, but it also results in a book where not much happens for hundreds of pages, suggesting in the end that Revival could have trimmed all the buildup and instead been an extremely unnerving short story.
Man, I feel like this really misses the point of the book.
I want to talk about this. I think there's some good points in this, but I want to talk about it more broadly. And I think we can kick off the hook by discussing that. But first, I want to read the synopsis. So, Mel, will you read the synopsis for us? And then we're going to move into the hook.
The new minister came to Harlow, Maine when Jamie Morton was a boy doing battle with his toy army men on the front lawn. The young Reverend Charles Jacobs and his beautiful wife brought new life to the local church and captivated their congregation. But with Jamie, he shares a secret obsession, a draw so powerful it would have profound consequences 5 decades after the shattering tragedy that turned the preacher against God, and long after his final scathing sermon. Now Jamie, a nomadic rock guitarist hooked on heroin, meets Charles Jacobs again. And when their bond becomes a pact beyond even the devil's devising, Jamie discovers that the word revival has many meanings.
I think that's a pretty good synopsis. Some of these synopsises suck ass.
The secret obsession bit is a little like, I don't know. It's just electricity. But
I guess that's true. But it's secret electricity.
Yeah.
They do. Oh, yeah, you're right. It is secret.
Okay. Okay. Let's move into the hook.
Ah. Yes. Don't you see? Don't you see how clear it all is? Not only can you see the future, I can change it. You can change it, exactly.
Here in The Hook, we talk about the themes, the ideas. What is this thing saying? And I do want to kind of just start out with a reaction to that last review, because I do think that could in some way sum up our general feelings about the book. Mel, you seem to have some. Why don't you kick us off?
Well, I feel that skimming over, quote unquote, important and tragic events like the death of Claire or the motorcycle accident feel so of a piece with the book's entire being, in that we are built to absorb truths that are sort of unabsorbable. Like it's something about resilience, but it's also something about like what other choice is there than to keep going. But it seems more tragically inflected than that to me too. It seems very much just like nothing is important. Everything is on an equal level of importance, or like heroin is important. So of course he's not going to talk about the accident. And I don't know, this book revolves so much around senselessness and the senselessness of how we lose people, and ultimately the senselessness of maybe everything. So it totally makes sense to me that, not trying to pun there, but it totally tracks to me that we just wouldn't get these moments in a traditionally narrative way, because the whole book is regarding senselessness from the outside the whole time.
Yeah. And I want to talk about senselessness more a lot later. I agree with you. That's the part of the review I take issue with as well, because in addition to everything you just said, I think a big part of this book is about what Jamie missed when he was on drugs. You know, it's like he doesn't really remember or can talk or wants to talk elaborately about things like his sister's death or his motorcycle accident, because these things happened when he was so blown out on drugs that he wasn't really there, especially for the Claire situation. He wasn't there in the way I think he would have hoped to be, because that's a lot of the regret that we see later in the book when he goes back home and has this lovely time and is like, why wasn't I taking more advantage of this earlier? Because I think this book is very much about looking back on a life.
You bring up a good point too, when like less about the drugs for me, but more about the repression of like, we just don't talk about these things, which happens both privately with him as a narrator, when he's like, I just like don't want to think about this. And of course it tracks with the ending, or the things you like just can't think about. But also his siblings say it, I think, to him too, where they're like, I can't talk about Claire. And and that also tracks with the sermon, where it's like he's daring to talk about what you don't talk about, like the grand lie of life.
Yeah, and I love that, and I want to talk more about that. But I guess what I'm curious about is how you guys feel about Jamie being sort of the driver of this story. She says that he is more or less the Neville Longbottom here, that we are like a side character who we are following as this larger story plays out. Mike, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I think that, you know, the point of the senselessness is absolutely apt. I think it's exactly what he's aiming for here. I think my problem is the medium. You know, I think when we were doing 11/22/63, Flieger made the funny joke that the assassination is a lot like the Poochie thing in Simpsons when they're like, oh, the fireworks factory. And we kept referencing that throughout all the episodes. It's like, oh, well, you've already told us about the assassination. So, you know, we got to get there. And what was so astounding about 11/22/63 is that I don't really care about it. You know, I mean, throughout all those episodes, we all talked about how, yeah, I kind of just love the love story here. I kind of love what's happening here. I love the life that he's actually created here, and you know, in Jody and what have you. And I'm not really that anticipating the fireworks factory. I'd say the opposite happens here, and I think that's a detriment to this book. I think for me, you start this off with such an incredible bookend. I mean, the bookends of this book are just absolutely some of the most powerful writing he's ever written, and most terrifying writing he's ever written. The issue I have is the journey getting between those two. And unlike 11/22/63, I am still thinking about the fireworks factory, because, you know, there are some interesting, you know, journeys that he goes through in this, but they're largely tied to the greater mystery at hand. And most of my misery happens to do with a lot of the kind of side quests in here. And I think what I ultimately landed on is where she gets at the end of this review, where she says that I think this does work better as a short story because I do think you can do that. And I think he has done that. I mean, he's done that countless times, and I have a number of short stories that come to mind from this. But I think that bridge between those two bookends, between his classic foreshadowing, which this may be the greatest King foreshadowing of all time. Like, we've talked about it from day one in this podcast. This story might be the best. The issue is that it goes back to that joke that Flieger made. It's just like, I am constantly thinking like, all right, where's Jacobs? I need to get, what's going on with the myth? Like, I don't really care about.
Well, that is like Poochie, right? It's like when Jacobs isn't on screen, people should be asking, where's Jacobs?
Where's Jacobs?
Yeah. That is so, I feel like that is a style clash. Like, I really do think this is King at his most concerned with the mundane emotional realities of like a dude. And like, that's not, it does read very literary to me, for lack of a better word. I do feel like you need a life, like the span of a life, to get to the end of this story.
I agree with that. I agree with Mike in a lot of ways, though, where I'm like, is this the life I wanted to follow? But I agree completely, because it's the accumulation that I think is where the impact lands. But yeah, Justin, what were you going to say?
There's another version of the story that is not as successful for me, and that is spending time with Charlie apart from Jamie. It's a problem I've run into with The Stand, with it. When we start to spend too much time with the antagonist of the story, I only want to see the antagonist through the eyes of the protagonists. I want to be left in the dark as much as the people who are following. So for me, because like I said, I read it 10 years ago. I promise you that's the truth. And for me, I was afraid to go back and reread it in a couple of ways, because I was thinking about when I reread The Talisman, for instance. And there were some long stretches of The Talisman I don't like at all now. The book is not as good as I remember it being, 25 years ago. Right? Yeah, top 5 disappointing rereads. So, look, Jamie is not, one of the great memorable leads of a Stephen King novel, right? But it's the story itself that makes it rewarding, and with the reread, making it a successful reread for me. Like, I do love the dynamic between this relatively insignificant guy, Jamie Morton, and this pastor who stumbled upon him 50 years earlier. And like, his normie nature, #normie nature, and the relationships that he develops, they may seem aimless in that middle section of the book. But for me, like, when we find out what happens to Hugh, when we find out what happens to Astrid, those really hit me hard.
I
do realize, there's just certain stretches where you're just like everything with Bree, like, get me out of here.
Oh, agree with that. But
sure.
What are we doing here? Like, and then there's anyway. But I do think like it is almost for me a question of genre, because I do think that there are Stephen King trends, or like the foreshadowing and the idea that this novel, like Frankenstein, might be very concerned with a question of hubris. And I think Jamie throughout is always really a voice for that message of like, we should not be so conceited that we think this is for us to know. He dips into like, oh, I'm a little curious too, a couple times, like anyone would. But I do think there is this flattening to him sometimes when the book wants to be like, this is Frankenstein. We're examining how science brings us into places we weren't meant to tread. But at the same time, that really butts up against what I love most about the book, which is its total ambiguity on that subject. Like, I think by the end of the book, it's not a story about hubris. Like, it's almost as though the book is arguing with itself about how we're supposed to think about the Reverend, and maybe King doesn't know how Jamie is supposed to think about all of this, but like,
yes, I agree completely.
Leaving it to the reader's interpretation, there's so much ambiguity, and the hubris messaging, the like very flattened Frankenstein genre messaging, like doesn't jive with the realism of Jamie. And I think there's just like this tension there that can be really disruptive when I read.
There is a bit where near the end where Jamie like yells at him, like, you can't do this, And I remember being like, why does he feel that way? Like, I don't understand. That felt like the moral authority of the author creeping in.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
well, Jamie, I think at that point, he's been doing all this investigation on what all of these quote unquote cures are doing to people. And I think that it's tying into what's happening here. And I think that at this point he's like, please don't. There's something beyond
maybe.
that door.
But I just
think that's a valid point, though. I think it wasn't just it's all of a sudden don't do it. I don't think it's as simplistic as that.
But there's so many moments like that when
yeah,
when Jamie is like, I know that he shouldn't be doing this, and I'm convinced by that. Like I feel like most readers are like not convinced by that.
Yeah, like no, keep going. You know,
Yeah.
Mike, what are you gonna say?
I think this is, for me, it feels too much of a potpourri of who he is as a writer. You know, I'm probably the loudest supporter on this podcast of him being more of a literary dramatic writer. I've said it multiple times. I say that's the big revelation I've had on this podcast is realizing that I think I like his more dramatic writing than I do sometimes the scares, because I think that he knows how to punch you and pummel you in ways that I have never been from any other writer. But what I took umbrage with this story is that, and it's pretty much where he is at right now in this point in 2014. It's very crossroads-ish. You know, you get some writing that's very literary, that's kind of lean more onto some of those passages that would be in 1122, or even stuff that would be in Full Dark No Stars, which was not too long before this. And then you get a lot of pulpy genre beats that are, very much of his own style. I mean, look, like there's flourishes of, I was a teenage grave robber in this that are from his original early days that pop up here, that he's certainly, flexing in that. There's touches of Jerusalem's Lot. There's bits and pieces of a lot of the world building that's in Doctor Sleep and a lot of his recent stuff. And much to my chagrin, there's hints of where it's going to go with like the Mr. Mercedes and, the true crime elements of it all, and how
the
you need a character
investigator,
that's playing basically the Oracle from Batman. Like that there's a lot going on, and that I think that's why, the longer the space he gets, and especially maybe in this era, because Dr. Sleep is guilty of this too, the more room or runway he gets, the more he's gonna start scrapbooking. He's gonna start leaning into other genres. He's gonna start reading into other tones and voices. And I think that's maybe one of the reasons why I wouldn't say struggle, because I did enjoy this book, but there were definitely aspects of it where I was like, this feels like it almost feels like I'm listening to like now that's what I call music sometimes.
It's extremely, I think the stylistic blend is extremely interesting, and you can pull it off. And I want to clarify too that when I say literary, I don't mean like it's not a moral or a value judgment. I just mean publishers define it, like,
right.
Yeah, I know. I also know King listens to this and he hates it when people are like literary, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I hate it too. I usually am. But I know what you're, that's what I'm
like it's just the styles are different. It really is a collage. Like there are times where I'd be reading like a beautiful passage, and then of course it ends with like this Kingism that's just like, and then we laughed till the sun went down, and I'm like, that doesn't quite fit with what we were just.
And then she pulled out her boobs and said, "Bang me," and we did.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, but King's been doing that his entire career, though, even in the best books. This isn't like some, oh my God,
but this is so meandering in other places, pleasurably so. Like the styles are so contrasting for me here more than in other works.
Okay. Everything you guys are saying dovetails really nicely with the next question I want to ask, which is I personally saw, like Mike mentioned this too. There's so much DNA of a lot of like previous King stories, I think, throughout this book. And I'm curious what ones came to mind for you. I have a bunch, but Justin, what do you think?
I think we talked a little bit about this, Mike, on You Like a Darker episode where I made a comp when we were reading The Dreamers.
Yep, 100%.
And I don't want to spoil that because it's relatively new. But there's something that struck me this time, was thinking about an alternate universe. And it's kind of like, what if Larry Underwood never had a hit single?
Yeah.
And fell right into drugs. That's kind of Jamie's alternate path right there. The Jaunt.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, The Jaunt's a good one. I didn't even think of that.
And, I mean, look, the Dark Tower, the It finale. There's a lot of other worlds, basically, that it calls to mind.
Mike, how about you?
So you know how John Carpenter, I should say, Carpenter, like we're pals. Like the John Carpenter has like the Apocalyptic trilogy. This, I feel like he has this sort of, I don't know, I'm going to call them the null accounts. And it's stuff like 1408 and Revival is this book. That feeling you can only say what is in French. And as Justin said, The Dreamers. And it's a lot of these stories that contend with what lies beyond and the maddening effects of being stuck in like a sort of infinite cyclical, inescapable situation. And I think that's ultimately what gets under his skin, is the idea that he could be in that in perpetuity, for lack of a better word. And all those stories deal with that, and they deal with those traps, and they all come down to the end of like, you know, can I get away from this thing that I opened? Is my mind going to let me get away from this thing I open? And I think that's when he really does scratch at the scariest parts of his works. I mean, like, I've said it on both his 1408 and End, I think are some of the scariest works he's ever written. And they all deal with the same type of thing. Just that, you know, it's like what Dr. Zayas said, don't look for it, Taylor. You may not like what you find. And
man, I swear, Mike, I was going to mention that quote later.
Oh, really? Are you kidding me?
Because that's what I thought about the entire book. Was
I've just been in
quote.
Apesville lately, so it's just
we're in Ape season, starring Owen Teague, the new movie of The Stand. So no, I love those comps, like N, 1408, and then I haven't read The Dreamers, but like what you're saying though really resonates with me, because the word I kept coming back to was like a creeping distrust of what we're told about what's beyond the veil, you know, because nobody knows, but we're told that within certain faith structures, this is what to expect. And he's basically saying, and what I love about this, and I want to talk about this more in a little bit, so I don't want to go down here just yet, but, you know, I feel like especially around this time, or at least in, you know, post 9/11 and everything, a lot of people were kind of, you know, I think there was a lot of backlash to sort of the evangelical movement, and there was a lot of discussion and talk about like, well, what if we're alone in the universe? And I mean, I know obviously these are old philosophical questions, but just through the modern lens, like, what if there is no heaven or hell? What if we're just rot in a box when we die? And I just love this sort of cheekiness of King just saying like, but what if there is an afterlife, but it's just hell? You know,
for everyone.
For everyone. Like that to me is so fucking like impish and malevolent that I just have to fucking admire it. And yeah, there are shades of this in 1408 and N too, which is just basically like what's beyond the veil is something you do not want to fucking know about. So stop asking. But I want to talk more about that in a little bit. What came to mind for me was obviously Pet Sematary, because it's the obsession with death and it goes to such dark places.
Given the title, I was so convinced that he's just about to try and bring his like dead wife and son back to life. Like I was so surprised that was not actually the ending.
It was a good switch.
I thought about the Tommyknockers a lot because it feels like Jacobs is building these like magical instruments with common household items.
I'll blow a 237 here, but there's literally a shed that he works out of that has like a green light battery or whatever. And that reminds me of the shed from the Bobby's shed in Tommyknockers.
Yeah, I wrote that in my King's Dominion as well, because like there's the mention of the green and then there's talk about batteries and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, this is the fucking he's riffing on Tommy.
I was like, it's time for my reread. It's been 6 years.
You will not reread.
Welcome back.
I've read Tommyknockers 3 times.
I've read it 3 times as well.
I swear to God, I read that. I read it in middle school. I read it when I went like in 2000, and I'll read it again. I read it again 8 years ago. I swear that's the magic about King, is I will sooner reread a bad King book than a great book by somebody else.
All the ones I missed are just the ones that you would never want to go. I still need to read Roadwork. I still need to read The Talisman. I still need to read Tommyknockers.
You gotta get on that Roadwork. I mean,
I got
Roadwork,
and I just couldn't do it. But
Roadwork is like one like 1/10 of the size of Tommyknockers, but
I do feel like Roadwork would hit different and perhaps harder now as like, you know, just a boomer ass screed. Like I think it's relevant.
Yeah, I reread it
unintentionally almost though.
I reread it when we were doing the Bachman. We did a bunch of episodes about Bachman when we did Blaze, and I hated it, but I definitely got it a lot more.
Sure.
But Mel, what were you thinking of? I have a few more, but I want to hear
all of those. I really honestly was mostly thinking of Pet Sematary. I think I also thought about Needful Things a little bit in terms of like you can get what you want through magic, but like it will
do you really want it?
Yeah. So there's also a point at which the book is like and he had become gaunt, and I was like, yes.
Gaunt, I think I caught that too. I was thinking about Green Mile too, because the idea of healing And I even have a question we can discuss later if we want. If I don't want to overdo it, but it's like just the comparison of like John Coffey, who has this supernatural healing power, and someone like Jacobs, who his healing power is supernatural, but it's not innate. It's through science, And
Yeah.
And John Coffey is very much portrayed as like a Christ figure, and Jacobs is very much like a devil figure masquerading as a Christ figure. And so I don't know. I found that really compelling.
I
And of
would love
course,
to
yeah,
poll
go
the
ahead.
group at some point, like where do we fall on the ethics of what Jacobs is doing? Because
I
like
have a question about that. So
it's
we
murky.
put a pin in it. I have a lot of thoughts on that. And then lastly, and I'm going to talk about this a lot shortly, but from a Buick 8, I
Yeah.
thought more about Buick 8 during this than I did anything else.
Mm.
And I went into my notes from when we did the episode, and I can see why. Because a lot of the quotes that I pulled from the book, I think, dovetail really nicely with Revival. And I'll get to that.
You're
But
talking about when he kind of goes into the trunk and sees what's on the other side? Is that what
no,
you're referring to? You're referring to something else.
yeah, it's more the existential qualities of the books, but we'll talk about that. Okay, I want to talk about the ending a little bit, and what feelings we were left with. And this doesn't need to be long or anything, but did you find it edifying or nihilistic? Because not everybody loved the ending. Some of the critics said Revival may be light on horrific detail, but the glimpse its author gives of the darkness behind the veil is black indeed, and that's from The Guardian. The critical review I read of it, though, is from The Independent, and this was a positive review. But they said, where Revival falls down, if not quite apart, is in its climax. The problem isn't entirely the genre familiarity. King riffs deftly on Pulp Fiction's great sex set pieces, but after Revival is finally judged first 5/6, the conclusion feels rushed and unbalanced. More space is devoted to the best way to dry dishes than explaining the murder-suicide of two of Jamie's close friends. This may reflect our narrator's understandable trauma, but hints at a novelist in impatient or brusque mood. Revival is fine, if not vintage King, but that still makes it tastier than most bestsellers out there. So yeah, not everybody loved the ending, and I will say there is an abruptness to it.
Mm-hmm.
I found that appealing, but I'm curious how you all feel. Justin, you went
I could cheat and say it's a push, whether it's edifying or nihilistic, and I'm going to do that because it's a podcast. So we can do that. I've read and loved a lot of Stephen King stories over the years, and I've forgotten certain parts of the ending of many of those books I love a lot. I have never forgotten the description of this other world that Jamie talks about seeing. Like this
exactly,
ending to
which
me,
is why I had to own up to my lie.
exactly. It's like the Fuji is like, oh, it's a hockey arena. No, I mean, this is one of the greatest endings of his entire book. Not just the climax, but then, like Mike, were you talking about the bookend? The what we find out even more
The
about
epilogue,
what
yeah.
these cures have done, and that ending of the book. I don't know. I love the ending. I love it. I love it for its nihilism. I love it for its just blunt force trauma that you get from it. Guy said trauma.
I
But it's
wrote
truth.
I wrote Jesus Christ in all capitals like 10 times
Yeah.
in my notes because I had no clue how hard it was going to go.
You know,
Mel,
and
how
King,
did
look,
Because you
King gets
hadn't read
knocked
it
for his
before.
novel endings, but I have no notes about the ending of this book. I don't. I don't have any notes.
Mel, thoughts?
I think it's utterly nihilistic.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, it doesn't get much bleaker. I think it does give you the requisite amount of, you can look at it through a lens of almost Buddhist nihilism, right? Like Jamie does. I think by the end he's going to therapy. He's really staking a lot of worth on the little things, like getting a smile from his institutionalized brother, like because he actually does 100%, or not 100%, but mostly 100% know that is all there is. Like what else is there but the little moments throughout the day, especially if you're condemned to this other world when you die. And like, yeah, you don't get more nihilist than that. I mean, we can also argue a little bit over whether or not we do believe that the world is true, or if we think that Mother lied, but I take it at face value.
I do too. Yeah. And this
Yeah,
instance,
Mother Lied is such a revealing moment because I wrote down the Bible verse. It's in the book of John. They say, let me see if I can bring it up here. You are of your father, the devil, and the desires of your father you want to do. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own resources, for he is a liar and the father of it. But because I tell the truth, you do not believe me. And that's from John 8:44-45. And that's, the devil is the father of lies is very much a, oft repeated line within the Christian mythos. And so it's, essentially any lie you're told about or any doubt you have, at least, in the fundamentalist world that I came from, it was very much the devil's lying to you. And so the repetition of mother lied, mother lied, mother lied reminded me a lot of, I think, a mantra that I think a lot of Christians tell whenever they have doubts. But I'll talk about that more in a moment. Mike, how about you? How did this ending land with you?
Oh, it's great. I mean, I love a nihilistic ending. I love the abandon all hope ye who enter here. And we do mean all who enter here, which means everyone.
Yeah. The fact that
there's-
you see like Maury, like the most innocent characters are being tortured by the aunts,
Which you could make the argument that it's like, you stare in the abyss and the abyss stares back at you, and it's just, building upon who you are, your own personalities are what's going to hurt you the most. But I like Mel, I take this all at face value. And I think the thing that's, when you look at it based on the previous bookend, the beginning, his sermon, it just ties so neatly with that foreshadowing of, there's a line here. Let me find it real quick. I have it in my notes. It's when he says, "Believe what you want, but I tell you that this behind St. Paul's darkened glass, there is nothing but a lie." And even before that, with just the idea of him being like, there's no proof of these afterlife destinations, and how he's basically talking about how the role of the church has manipulated and capitalized on societies for thousands of years. And then you equate that with other institutions. And it's kind of like, it not only does it just dovetail so well with that beginning opening salvo, but it just makes sense. I mean, you're talking to the most cynical person on this podcast, probably. I'm an atheist. I don't believe there's anything out there. But I think the idea that we could expect anything to be out there just kind of fills it toes the line and mirrors everything that the human condition is. We are built. We're a human beast built on quid pro quos. We think that if we're going to give, we're going to receive, and that's just. I think the more you get, the older you get, you realize that's just not true. And
think of the end of the book when Jamie's talking to his brother and he goes, "You remember the horrible sermon or whatever?"
Mm-hmm.
And it horrified us then, but he's like, "Seems pretty true to me now."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
it's almost it's worse than nihilism because it's pretty much like life is nihilism, life is senseless, death is worse. And also it's going to be especially worse for Jamie because now he's got a vendetta against him from these forces. So more than nihilism, it's just utter devastation.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that because I want to square this vision and these ideas about faith and religion, organized religion that you guys are touching on, with the way King talks about God and the afterlife in interviews, because I think that there's something interesting to be revealed here. So this is from Rolling Stone, that same interview, and this is him talking about his faith and stuff. So the interviewer says, switching gears, your new book Revival talks a lot about religion. Specifically, one of the two main characters is a reverend that turns on God when his family dies, but also delivers a sermon about why religion is a complete fraud. How much of that sermon mirrors your own beliefs? King said, my view is that organized religion is a very dangerous tool that's been misused by a lot of people. I grew up in a Methodist church and we went to service every Sunday, and I went to Bible school in the summer. We didn't have a choice. We just did. So all that stuff about childhood religion and revival is basically autobiographical. But as a kid, I had doubts. When I went to Methodist Youth Fellowship, we are taught that the Catholics were all going to hell because they worship idols. So right there, I'm saying to myself, Catholics are going to go to hell. But my Aunt Molly married a Catholic and she converted and she's got 11 kids and they're all pretty nice. And one of them's my good friend. They're all going to hell. I'm thinking to myself, this is bullshit. And if that's bullshit, how much of the rest of it is bullshit? And that quote, I really want to put a pin in. And then and then the interviewer said, "Did you relay any of that to your mother?" And he goes, "Jesus, no, I loved her. I never would have done that. Once I got through high school, that was it for me." When you see somebody like Jimmy Swaggart and he's supposed to be this great minister touched by God and he's paying whores because he wants to look up their dresses, it's just all hypocrisy. And the interviewer says, "All that said, you've made it clear over the years that you still believe in God." He goes, "Yeah, I choose to believe in God because it makes things better. You have a meditation point, a source of strength. I don't ask myself, well, does God exist or does God not exist? I choose to believe that God exists, and therefore I can say, God, I can't do this by myself. Help me not to take a drink today. Help me not to take a drug today. And that works fine for me." And then they say, "Do you believe in the afterlife?" And he goes, "I don't know. I'm totally agnostic on that one. Let's put it this way. I would like to believe that there is some sort of an afterlife. I do believe that when we're in the process of dying, that all these emergency circuits in the brain take over. I base what I'm saying not on any empirical evidence. I think it's very possible that when you're dying, these circuits open up, which would explain the whole white light phenomena. When people clinically die and they see their relatives and stuff and say, 'Hello, it's great to see you.'" And the interviewer says, "Do you hope to go to heaven?" And he goes, "I don't want to go to the heaven that I learned about when I was a kid. To me, it seems boring. The idea that you're going to lounge around in a cloud all day and listen to guys play harps. I don't want to listen to harps. I want to listen to Jerry Lee Lewis." Classic King. But anyways.
He's not in heaven.
That's true.
Is he still alive?
Is
Or
he?
did he finally
toasted.
die?
I think he's
Let
toast.
me look this up.
Yeah.
He's toast.
Oh no, he died in 2022. Oh,
Yeah.
All right.
3 days before Halloween. Seems fitting for the
A ghoul.
the monster
A
he
true
was.
ghoul.
Anyways, I find it interesting that his thoughts about God and religion and the afterlife aren't particularly complicated. And I know a lot of that comes from AA. We talked about that a lot in our desperation episode. A lot of his views of God are centered around his sobriety, which is a huge thing in AA. But I think one thing that really stands out to me is that line, "And if that's bullshit, then how much of the rest of it is bullshit?" Because he says, because I think what that captures, and many times in the book, there's that moment when we see chinks in kind of one of the load-bearing walls of our lives, right? And that can have a domino effect. When one thing doesn't make sense and we allow ourselves to think about that, then you start to realize that what foundation is all of this built on? And Mike mentioned this, that it's not just like organized religion, it's like institutional, right? So you can subject any institution to scrutiny and you're likely to start to see the flaws and the contradictions. The question is whether you can live with them. And if you keep peeling back layers, because if you keep peeling back layers, like you may find yourself drawn to despair or nihilism. Because I think that is the whole thing about faith. As somebody who used to be very Christian, these things are built upon the idea, like the suspension of disbelief in many ways. Like you're not meant to grapple with the contradictions. Some people do. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of scholarly books written about Christianity and trying to reckon with the contradictions and with the flaws and with the chinks in the wall. And I think King is essentially saying, why do that if that's just going to lead to despair? He's saying, I choose to believe in God. I don't know if there's an afterlife, but I do the thing that makes sense to me. And I think that this book is sort of a cheeky way of saying, you can chase those answerless philosophical questions, but you really just might not like what's on the other side, And I think that's something that we've already touched on here. But yeah, I'm really drawn to it, and I'm drawn to this quote too. This is from near the end of Revival, and he talks about Jacobs being someone who isn't interested in the mystery of faith, but it's someone who would rather violate it.
This is what I had.
Yes, and I love
Yes.
this quote. So he says, his exhalation stank of age and infirmity. It occurred to me that he could have waited a few months and investigated what lay on the other side of the door personally, but that, of course, wasn't what he wanted. At the heart of every established religion is one sacred mystery that supports belief and induces fidelity, even to the point of martyrdom. Did he want to know what lay beyond death's door? Yes. But what he wanted more, I believe this with all of my heart, was to violate that mystery, to drag it into the light and hold it up screaming, here it is. What all your crusades and murder in the name of God were for. Here it is, and how do you like it? And so I'm really just taken by this idea of, do we really want these answers? And if so, why do we want them? And Jacobs, who feels betrayed by God, he is someone who judges those who are content to believe in what he considers to be the lie. They've chosen fairy tale stories of heaven and hell, and we do it all the time in life. We choose simple narratives for our own comfort. And this is where I wanted to just talk about the Buick 8 connections. And Mike, you were on Buick 8 with me, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I'm sure you might have an idea. And Mel, have you read Buick 8?
I have not.
Justin, have you read it?
I've read it, yeah.
Okay. That book, I think, is interesting. And I think one of the reasons it hasn't been adapted is because there's not really much of a story. And that's kind of the point in a way, where it's like, and Mel, you had talked about this, the senselessness. And this is where I want to circle back to that, because that book is all about senselessness and not being able to connect one string to the other string. And I just have a couple quotes here because, so yeah, this is a quote from Buick 8. Because you have to get through first one night and then another and then a year of nights and then 10. You have to be able to turn off the lights and lie there in the dark. You have to believe you only did what would have been done to you. You have to arrange your thoughts because you know you can only live with the lights on so much of the time. And then later, you don't know where you came from or where you're going, do you? I asked him. But you live with it just the same. Don't rail against it too much. Don't spend more than an hour a day shaking your fists at the sky and cursing God. And I think this is what happens when you spend your whole life shaking your fist and cursing God.
Yeah.
And then the author's note on Buick, he says, the story became, I suppose, a meditation on the essentially indecipherable quality of life's events and how impossible it is to find a coherent meaning in them. And so I just wrote down, like, Buick was about the unknowables of life, and Revival is in many ways about the unknowables of death. So I've been talking a while. So that to me is, I think, some of the things that really landed with me. And I have some more to say, but I'm curious, how do you guys react to all of that? Mike, go ahead.
The Buick 8 thing's great, because one of the reasons why I dug deep into that was when we did the Colorado Kid, he had tweeted that, there's a connection to Buick 8. And, on the surface, everyone's like, oh, what, Dark Tower? What? No, but like, just rolling in it. But no, the idea is, and I think it actually, my theory about that was that it did have to do somewhat with the Dark Tower, in the sense that, this idea of the expectation of ending and the expectation of meeting, and the idea that, because you go on any journey, or you hear about some sort of thing, or you stumble upon some sort of plot or story, there's this expectation of there being an end, or somebody to explain something to you, or someone to basically say, oh, actually X, Y equals Z. But that's not life, and life doesn't work that way. And that's largely what Buick 8 is about, and that's largely what Colorado Kid is about. Is that, which, much to the chagrin of some of the listeners on here, is there is no, yes, which is, the mystery doesn't get solved, because sometimes it's just not supposed to be solved. And I think that's what life is like sometimes. It reminds, so when you consider that, the life and death of it all, as you just compared the two, there's two quotes that I think that I pulled. I don't know how I've remembered this, but they're from Crime and Punishment, and they're Dostoevsky. And he has one quote that says, your worst sin is that you have destroyed and betrayed yourself for nothing. And the other quote is, you sense that you should be following a different path, a more ambitious one. You felt that you were destined for other things, but you had no idea how to achieve them. And in your misery, you began to hate everything around you. And I think that mentality explains somebody like Charles Jacobs, who wants this idea to have this meaning. And because if there is no meaning, then what is the point of the people that he lost? What is the point of his own life? And because of that, he turns venomous, he turns vitriolic. And as you were saying before, it's not so much that he wants to take this mystery into the light. He wants to prove that none of this means shit, because his life means nothing. And I think that's kind of one of the biggest criticisms of nihilism, is that, oh, you're just miserable. And it's like, well, I don't know. Yeah, maybe that is the case a lot of the times for a lot of nihilists, and certainly for me. But also, I don't know. I think sometimes you can just see the larger picture of things and go, well, maybe it doesn't make sense. But are you good or bad to draw out these things? And I don't know, be self-righteous about it as Jacob's kind of is in the end of this. I don't know, but that's anyway, that's a lot of word vomit, but that's kind of what I've been seeing with all of these, all these
I almost
pieces
feel
and
like he
artifacts.
is vindicated in the end. Like I feel like the book again, it's trying to do its positioning is very clear. And I also highlighted that line about violating the mystery because it's so good. And you can tell that the book right then wants you to take the side of the voice that's saying don't violate the mystery, right? It's you're supposed to follow, you're like, yeah, don't do that. That's the Frankenstein message, the hubris message. But he does violate the mystery. He gets in his answer, and like it just is. Like I don't think that I don't think we're left with a clear, like, oh, he shouldn't have done that because we're all going there anyway. It's just a matter of time. Like,
yeah.
So
But he also
answer,
like drove countless people to kill themselves and other people though. And like,
but in the large
ways,
scheme of things, what does it matter? I mean,
it doesn't matter.
That's the
yeah, but
of
the whole
ending.
point is like, you live your life, even what Jamie's trying to do in this book is you're trying to at least, stay sane and live your life in some, as opposed to like dying or throwing sand in your eyes or killing your lover or something like that. I think
the book is trying to say that, but I think its own ending overpowers the morality of its supposed premise. Like I just feel like it's so nihilist that you're like, okay. Like,
because there's no Schrodinger, it's no Schrodinger's cat at the end, right? Like we know what it is. We know
what it is.
We're like, if you kept it vague, then I think there could be some sort of more morality aspect to this if you needed that. But like, I think the idea that he does prove this, and of course you could still make the argument that maybe it's in his head and what they saw is what they saw, and maybe it's not as face value as what it's King pretends it to be, but I don't think it is. And I think the ending is supposed to be as blunted as it is, and in that way that's what makes it so nihilistic even beyond the characters, is that like what would matter? Like, does it matter? Like, do you want
is the knowledge bad? No, it's just knowledge.
Yeah.
Like,
but the thing is, once you have that knowledge, then there's this other line from Buick 8 I highlighted, which is, we knew nothing about it, not really. Telling ourselves we did was just a strategy we used so we could continue living next door to it without too many bad dreams.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm talking about the Buick 8, like, which is this unknowable thing that they can't figure out, that they just know is in some ways evil. And I think that what Jamie lives with at the end, he has to tell himself that maybe mother lied, because how else is he going to keep going through his life,
And that, what's the flip side of that? Religion.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
Well,
and I think
need to tell these things to keep going, or, to believe things, or to cope, to get over death, to get over any of my things,
that's what I love about King's quote about God, where he's basically saying, like, I am one of those people who just tells myself there is a God because he says it's easier, it's nice, because I don't want to live without that hope. And I don't know, I find that to be a simplification, a beautiful simplification of like an extremely thorny and complex subject. And that's what I think King is very good at sometimes. So I don't know, those are big ideas. We can circle back around to them.
I got one question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So one thing that I thought about here is that, there is that quote, Jen brings it up all the time from Pet Sematary. It's like, oh, I think we go on, when, Lewis is talking to Ellie. And so the concept of going on, let's say, here are two examples. One, it's over. That's it. That's one scenario. That's it. It's done. You don't exist. The soul is gone. That's it. It's boom, pitch black. Or you go to Null and you get to hang out with all the old past souls of yourself, but you're getting tortured. Which one are you rather have?
Well, the first one, obviously.
You never existed, or you still exist, but you
get to be tortured with your friends.
Yeah,
the first one.
It's very unclear. Like,
Justin, I want to be tortured with you.
No, like, can we talk to people?
Probably
like, it seems like a lot of torment. And
can we talk to people?
Yeah, it seems tough.
Yeah.
Because even Hint's like, well, he doesn't know if maybe.
Can we have a revolution against the ants? Like, it seems like no.
Yeah. Well, what's the quote, the Lovecraft quote
guys.
from the beginning? And what he says is, that is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange aeons, even death may die. And even there's a moment that he suggests, well, maybe even after this next reality we go to, when you do die somehow, you move on to maybe the heaven or whatever, or the final hell. but I still think this is it. I think that Ant Place is the end of the line.
Well, along those lines, I'm curious how you guys like the Lovecraft odes, because it is pretty explicit, and I was thinking a lot about Dark Tower, where he made his influences so explicit in the final books. Like, he brings like the Harry Potter fucking world to the Dark Tower. And I almost had a shade of that here with the Lovecraft mythos. Like, I'm like, just invent your own thing, dude.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I did kind of like it. And I will say he's done this before. This idea of De Vermis Mysterious, or Mysteries of the Worm. It's a fictional grimoire created by Robert Bloch, author of Psycho, and incorporated by H.P. Lovecraft into the lore of Cthulhu. So this is the same book that was mentioned in Jerusalem's Lot, which you mentioned earlier, Mike. So that was the very first story in Night Shift. And then also it was mentioned on Chapelwaite, the TV adaptation of it. So yeah, it's like King is sort of, because this fictional grimoire that Lovecraft and Robert Bloch wrote about was mentioned in a couple different stories from both of them. So King, I feel like kind of this was his way of paying homage to them, is kind of incorporating it into this book. Do you guys like that approach? Are you Lovecraft fans? Mel, are you a Lovecraft fan?
I read a lot of Lovecraft in college and sort of branded myself a Lovecraft fan for a while, but I feel like people act like he has this monopoly on cosmic horror when really he's just the name that people know. Like, I mean, is it really that? It reminds me of just like stand-up comedy and people accusing like other people of plagiarizing jokes, when it's just like, no, that's just like a popular type of joke. Like, dude, I don't think H.P. Lovecraft like has a copyright on the concept of old, insane gods. He's just like the name we associate with them. So like, fine, Lovecraftian can be that descriptor. I just don't think we need to give him like that much credit when King does something like this. Like, it feels also Kingian at this point. He's so fond of it, and he does it. He puts his own spin on it. Like, I just feel like the unknowable is just horror, and like we don't always need to give the nod to HP.
Well, like I said, this was Robert Bloch's invention.
It's so funny to me.
Book, and then Lovecraft used it. Yeah,
I never would have paired Robert Bloch and H.P. Lovecraft together based on what I know about Lovecraft, and I really like Psycho, and the Psycho 2 book is actually quite good. But man, I never would have paired them together at all.
It's so wild. Apparently, when Robert Bloch was a teenager, they had like a pen pal kind of correspondence. And
that's really crazy to me.
I know.
Because Lovecraft is held in such high regard, and Bloch is kind of held up as like this kind of, honestly, like a hard crime novelist.
Yeah.
But it's the same. It's like we should be talking about Freud all the time. I mean, he's the one who has the whole essay on the uncanny, but we don't do that. We just talk about H.P. Lovecraft.
We talk about Freud enough.
Haven't you seen Lovecraft
We
Country?
cut hours of Freud content, and I demand we add it back in.
Mike, what were you going to say?
Well, I mean, if you have this mention in here, does this mean that, I mean, especially when you consider the context of Jerusalem's Lot, that King's Dominion exists in Lovecraft Dominion, that there is a Cthulhu?
Adrian Brody's there.
Adrian Brody's there. I mean, it's
Stars Network is there.
Well, it just seems like if these texts,
I'll go to
are
null
from
if
that
Adrian
universe,
Brody's there.
well, then you could be next to him when the ant thing is whipping or whatever it's doing.
Yeah.
Where he's wearing like a wig,
it's
that
not
dreadlock
nihilistic
wig
anymore.
See, isn't that much
the
better?
dreadlock wig.
Isn't that better than not
Than nothingness. Yeah.
See?
That would be like the equivalent to me of
Is
having like a
hell with
nice.
Adrian Brody better than not existing?
Yeah.
It's a nice deep sleep that you wake up the next morning, but you just never wake up. So you're just in a permanent sleep. I'll take it
Hey, I'll
over
take
being
that.
tortured by ants
Do you,
forever.
do you think like if you were in hell with Adrian Brody, he might give you like some insights in what Chapelwaite season 2 might have been like? Because there was
Hell is
Like,
eternal,
so-
so like by the law of probability, like yes, 100%, absolutely.
He's like, I'll put the streaming networks to know what they were up against with Netflix.
Oh my God.
I wanted to, you mentioned that they were pen pals, Robert Bloch and Lovecraft. Can't imagine what atrocities are in those letters.
Were they
during
alive
civil
at the
rights
same
movement.
time?
I don't know. I don't know about
They
Robert
were
Bloch's personal politics,
Yeah,
but maybe he
I
was
can
admonishing
imagine.
or
Yeah,
getting upset at HP.
Anyway,
probably
I
what,
like
the
the
60s?
Lovecraft stuff. I like it. King
Yeah,
likes it. Put it in there. That's fine.
Yeah.
I just feel like Lovecraft gets too much credit all the time for like a very broad horror concept.
No, I like that take. So, okay, let's move on. King was in his early to mid 60s when he wrote this book. Jamie Morton is around the same age in the book's present. How would you say we see his age reflected in the text? I think we've talked about the existential components of it, but I also think that King is reckoning with being an old man in this a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, I have this quote. I found this kind of sad. He goes, I didn't exactly consider myself retired, but I hadn't played in front of a live audience in over a year and had only sat in on 3 or 4 recording sessions, all cases of dire emergency. I did not equip myself well in any of them. During the playback of one, I caught the drummer grimacing as if he'd bitten onto something sour. He saw me looking at him and said the bass had fallen out of tune. It hadn't, and we both knew it. If it's ridiculous for a man in his 50s to be playing bedroom games with a woman young enough to be his daughter, it's just as ridiculous for him to be playing a Stratton high-stepping to Dirty Water. Still, I watched those guys kick out the jams with some longing and quite a lot of nostalgia. And then on the next page, because I still dated the occasional lady, I still played tennis twice a week and rode my bike at least 6 miles a day, which kept my stomach flat and my endorphins flowing. Sure, I saw a few more lines around my mouth and eyes when I shaved, but on the whole, I thought I looked about the same as ever. That, of course, is the benign illusion of one's later years. It took going back to Harlow in the summer of 2013 for me to understand the truth. I was just another frog in a pot. The good news was that so far the temperature had only been turned up to medium. The bad was that the process wouldn't be stopping anytime soon. The 3 true ages of man are youth, middle age, and how the fuck did I get old so soon? And I think there's a lot of moments like this, and I think I can even I don't think I can defend it, but his affair with Bree, which is like just really awkward and misery laden. I do think it's kind of like he has a line where he's basically like, yeah, that was the last young chick I ever banged.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a certain amount of, as you get older, you're just like, oh, well, I'm never going to do that again.
Well, this is where I get like armchair psychiatrist with this, where it's like, all right, if I'm, we know how he writes, right? So he's got ideas, but he just kind of hits the page and just sprints. So like, if you consider the 2 bookends of like, all right, I know where we started and I know where kind of we have to get to. We got to get to, as I said before, the fireworks factory. Everything in between is like his like fucking rock and roll fantasy. He's just like, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna be a musician. I got my booze, I've got my babes, and I've got my bikes. And these are all things that he likes. Like he is a motorcyclist. Like he rides hogs all the time across Maine. He loves music. He loves it. Like, so
rock bottom remainders.
I don't try to be too king sight here and king point of view, but this is absolutely something that I think he relishes being. Like that sort of autonomy that Jamie has. Like there's no family commitments. There's no real job commitments. He kind of just gets to kind of, relish in the extremities of life. And I do wonder if there's a part of him, again, armchair psychiatrist, that's like, yeah, this is kind of fun for a while. Although he still contends with the dangers of it all,
That's the thing. There's so many consequences.
But there is like a part of it where he's like, I'm having fun with this.
It seems 1-to-1, like not even aspirational, but just like real. Like this is almost his life already. Like he gets to play with his band. I do the focus on aging in this book. I feel like my main problem with Stephen King works is always the text's insistence on physical ability and physical appearance reflecting something deeper. And like the aging is where we see this here, where there's a really refreshing kind of honesty, I think, present with it when he sees Astrid. He's like, I wish I could tell you that she was a looker still, but honestly, she was awful. And like that is, again, like that can be refreshing in the sense that like that's a thought we all have that's tapped into the gut of the human. But the book takes it one step further and is usually just like, and that means she's just like bad now. Like she actually is worthless. It is only when she gets healed that we get the kiss. It is like, the book really does believe. And I think, I don't want to do too much armchair whatever, but I think this is one of King's biggest problems as a writer, is he really, really believes that we lose innate dignity with our bodies failing or not conforming to a certain standard of attractiveness. Like he really equates those two things. And that's very present in this book with aging in particular.
And he's reckoning with it himself. Yeah.
I mean, he told us that himself at the Dreamcatcher stuff when you guys were all talking about him, shitting his pants and stuff, and that being like the biggest fucking fear. I mean, it's true. I mean, I agree in the sense that like there's so much more to aging than that. Having said that, as probably the most vain person in this podcast, also it is my greatest fear. Like I go and see like who's the guy from Mary Poppins, Dick Van Dyke. They
Yeah.
just had a video of him. He's like 98 years old. Granted, he's always grinning, but he looks great. I'm like, holy shit, he looks great at 98 and he's still fucking dancing. I hope I can do that.
Ozempic.
60, 70. He's probably doing Ozempic, knowing him. Dick Van Dyke just huge
No
on the
way.
fucking thing.
No way.
No, I just did. Just took my shot. But that's it. It is the first thing I think of. Like I've been obsessed with Clint Eastwood. I'm obsessed with his mortality. I want him to live another 40 years. I see him hunching a little bit. I'm like, all right, Clint, maybe there's something we can do where you're not hunching so much anymore.
Ozempic.
And that is the first thing I think of. So it is the visual of it all, and the agency or the lack of agency you have for the body. It is something that does come to mind. Like my mother is bedridden, and oh my God, that's all she talks about. Like, and like, and just like, she still wants makeup. She still wants all these things. So the vanity of that, again, I come from a very vain family. So she's probably an exception to the rule here, but it's like, she'll be like, all right, I need to get some new products. I'm like, oh, okay. So what food do you want? Well, no, I need some blush and I need some, I'm like, Mom, what do you need all this fucking stuff for? You're in a bed. Like, what are you going to do? And that's her priority. So it's like, and she's 69, 70 years old. So there is that. I do think that it does stick with us. Like it is just this, like, but there is more to it. For
We're
sure.
never going to get away from it. I think it's just we just have to think about it, and I think we just really have to be like, that doesn't mean you're not a person. That's all.
Totally.
That's all. Like, and I think King is like, you're not a person anymore. Like.
Yeah, especially the way he sees the acid thing is a fair comment, because it is strange. It is just like, get her away from me. And then
And I talked about that, I remember, in our Holly episode, where it's just like at the end of the book, Holly's like, hey, he could lay off the donuts, like when they're talking about nothing else, like nothing related to that whatsoever. But anyways, okay. Last question in the hook. And this relates to what Mel wanted to talk about. Is a healing any less legitimate if it comes from a false prophet? Mel, your thoughts?
There's no way that the preacher could have known that his quests end would result in the murder-suicides of many people. And the work that he is doing and the math that he is doing seems pretty solid to me. Like, I would not have as many objections to what is going on as Jamie does. I would love to tell him about it. I would be like, hey, did you know that these are side effects that are going on? Maybe we should like inform people that there's a slight risk to getting Faith healed. That seems like pretty ethical, being like, hey, slight risk. I had a root canal done today, 15% chance of failure, better odds than getting healed, or worse odds than getting healed by Jamie. And if I had like some virulent form of cancer, or like, you bet your ass I'm going to get healed by that guy, and then I'm going to be grateful that he healed somebody. Like, knowing that there is a kid in an asylum banging his head against a wall, like, yeah, I'm still going.
But everybody, it's happening to everybody, like the porn.
No, they say it's a small percentage.
Yes, but as it goes on, the cases keep growing and growing, though, as we get to the final part. Basically, when he says you've been tracking it, you keep tracking it over the years, and he just dismisses it like he doesn't care.
Well, I will say this: any scientist knows that there's going to be collateral damage when you do an experiment. Not saying it's good, but that is what science is. And it's like, I'm not defending it. I just like the question. I like the thorniness of the question. But that's the thing, is you're going to break a few eggs when you make an omelet.
I
right.
do. It's unethical what he's doing. Like, it is unethical.
Yeah,
it's people are uninformed.
100%.
I think Jamie's objections are a little also hyperbolic. Like,
I don't know, but he's reading these awful things that are happening to people. He's not a scientist. He's not a preacher. He's not as deep as Charlie is about all this stuff. I would probably be the same if I started finding out that a good percentage of these people are being affected. Hugh's having issues even that's freaking him out.
He's seeing rainbows. That's kind of cool.
He's
not seeing
even
ants,
he's seeing the
and
truth.
he's freaking out.
He's seeing the truth, Justin.
Yes, but Charlie doesn't know that, is what I'm saying. Charlie is not aware of that. He just thinks there's some bad things happening here. Charlie shouldn't be doing these things. I mean, I don't say.
I mean, it's the risk you take. It's because when it comes to your body and your mortality, It's Shane West and James Franco. It's 2000s, whatever it takes. You just gotta go do whatever you
Mike's
gotta
going
do
to Charlie as soon as he sees like crow's feet.
Oh, are you
Oh,
kidding me?
no.
I mean, look at all these people that are taking Ozempic right now. They're literally, it's only been like less than a year since people have really been doing it. And they're already having people come like, it's cousin this and that. Still, people are ordering it by the dozens.
You're really on an Ozempic train today. I didn't know you had all these Ozempic thoughts.
Are you kidding me?
Well, let me say this.
If there's something to do with any sort of vanity out there, I'm going to find it. Like it's in my Google search like all the time.
I'm fascinated by it. I haven't made up my mind yet. It's such an interesting phenomenon.
Randall's the first person to point out Ozempic face for me, and that came when I was like, why does Tim Heidecker look at someone? And
okay.
Anyway.
All I will say is I love everything we're saying. It's the question that is so fascinating in this book is the idea of like, if you do get this miraculous healing, which does in some ways feel as if you've cheated death or you've cheated the natural order of things, the fear is that there has been a bomb planted inside you and you just don't know what it is yet. And Mike, like you kind of mentioned this with Ozempic, it's like, that's, I think, why a lot of people are squirrely about it right now is it seems to be this miracle drug. The question is, what's going to happen in a couple of years? Is something going to happen in a couple of years? And that's, I think, what's going on with this, which is like, if you had the ability to heal like a horrible cancer or like what I like about this book is that a lot of the diseases that are healed are like unbearable. Like what Hugh has, like is it tinnitus or whatever? It's like, it's like, it's hard to live with. And so it's like, would you rather risk something to lose this at knowing that you may suffer later, or do you want to live with this thing now? And that to me is a really, really compelling argument. And of course it made me think, and I think this was directly inspired by Jim Jones in particular, because they talk about how Charlie would fake some healings, like they would bring out like animal guts and say, this is the tumor that was inside you. That is a real thing that a lot of tent preachers used to do, because you can't just, a lot of it was fake because they wanted to build up a following and make it seem real. So they would have plants in the audience and then they would, have this guts with them and then pull it out and say, this is my tumor, and they would show it to the audience and everybody would gasp. And Jim Jones literally did this exact thing. But the thing about Jim Jones is that a lot of people, even people who were with him in Guyana, say that they're like, I know he was a fraud, but I can't explain how he healed me. And they believe that he healed them. And that, there's a million different ways you can talk about that. But the thing is, like, healing from a false prophet is still valid in some ways,
Well, in this book, it's very like he is healing people.
Oh, I know, it's quite literal in this, and that's what I think is really interesting. But that's the thing about Jones too, is that he did do a lot of fake healings, but there's a lot of other ones where people say he healed me, and of course, a lot of it probably is mental because that's just how humanity is. But it doesn't change the fact that that person believes that they were spiritually healed. So I don't know. A lot of this is in our heads. I find it very interesting. Any other thoughts before we move on? Cool. Let's hop into a quick detour into structure and format.
Look at me. Look at me, teacher.
I don't have much to say here. We stick with Jamie's POV throughout. We get Brechtian chapter titles, which King is prone to, where, he teases the major events at the beginning of each chapter with, he did this in Low Men in Yellow Coats, many other books. Any other general thoughts about structure and format? This isn't really one of his more ambitious books in terms of structure.
You would do go for it.
I like reading the chapter headings and how you can just see that, like, how the book itself functions as its own outline. And like, as someone who's trying to think about how novels are structured, it's just a pleasure to be like, oh, you can just say 3 things that happen in the chapter, and then you can write them.
And I think that's how King probably thinks about it. He's like, okay, in this chapter, I'm going to do this, this, and this,
I'll say this book seems like, I know he often says he writes his books, he doesn't know where they're going to go. this feels like he did know where it was going to go.
100%. Yeah, I thought the
That's the
same.
difference to me with this book versus other novels or other stories for that matter.
This to me feels like he had the short story, and it could go bigger, And I can't find there was a quote that he did recently, and it was talking about, how do you know when it's a novel, or how do you know it's a short story? How do you know it's a novella? And he's like, there's more story to tell. And I do wonder if there was like a seed of this, because it was an idea that he had in his head for a long time, and he just was able to kind of grow the story from in between. In terms of structure and format, the thing that, which is clearly the best section that we have here at the Losers Club, by the way, easily a fan favorite. Everyone loves structure and format. It's a huge one.
They always want the timestamps, and we always
just want
forget to put it on there.
They're like, wait, you guys did structure and format?
All the ads before structure and format.
Yeah. Well, when we sell, featured placements on the podcast, we get Avis and like,
Avis.
Yeah, and Pinkberry, they're always like, hey, can we get, sponsor the structure and format section? Anyway, there is a little bit of finesse with the way that he'll do these sort of, it's almost like Terrence Malick-esque, where he'll like start where he's doing when he talks about the sermon, right? In the beginning with Charles Jacobs. It's not so much that he's like, oh, well, this is what happened. It's, I was talking to my sister on the playground 20 or 30 years ago about this. And I asked her about the sermon, and that's his conduit into getting us to that scene, even though like narratively we're already there, but he'll like throw us ahead in the future and then go back. And he does that like multiple times throughout this book. It's a little disorienting, but it's also kind of great because he is able to build out his world and also capture the funnel of time, because otherwise this would be a 1,000-page book if he was going to capture those things. I just thought it was an interesting way he did it. I haven't really seen him do that a lot. And I thought that was kind of a cool little stylistic quirk that he did.
So. Yeah. Any other structure and format thoughts? On that note, let's head over to Heroes and Villains.
I'm gonna have to kill this fucking clown. Welcome to the Losers Club, asshole!
Here in Heroes and Villains, we talk about the characters. I only have a few I really want to discuss in depth here, and that's Jamie and Charles Jacobs, because they are kind of our touch points here. I have a few quotes here that I think are interesting. So this is talking about Jamie. King says, there's this saying, write what you know. It's bad advice if you take it as an unbreakable rule, but good advice if you use it as a foundation. I did spend years as an addict, so I know that world, although I wish I didn't. When it comes to rock music, I'm not much of a player, but I do have entry-level chops. I'm more knowledgeable as a listener, and Revival gave me a way to write about rock and roll without being preachy or boring. Though through Jamie, I had a chance to talk about how important rock is to me and how it lifted my life. So how did you guys feel about Jamie? It seems like King did see a lot of himself in this character. Did you respond to him? Did you find him to be annoying in the way that we sometimes find King protagonists, or was he a pleasant companion on this trip? Justin?
I have to tell you, the way I read Jamie now, as somebody who's going to be 44 this year versus 34, it only made me like, if not even relate to Jamie more. I've accepted the fact now that I'm at that age, and I'm fine with it. That I'm a normie. Maybe I'm a bit of a rockist, I look at who's playing like Lollapalooza this year, and I feel like I'm in the world of the ants whipping people. Like I don't recognize any of this. And so
the ants whipping people.
I'm in on the rock and roll folksy shit. I don't care anymore. Like I can relate more to that than I can to the current world that's being marketed to the people of today. So
Mike,
I remember making fun of Jamie 10 years ago, even though I liked this book and all the rock and roll attitudes and this and the drugs and the carnival and this and that. But now I don't know. Like I said, if I really didn't like this character, I feel like I would have, look, don't get me wrong. I'm just never one to not be vitriolic about certain characters and stories. And so, like I said, if I didn't like this journey that we're on with Jamie and the people he ends up meeting at the time, maybe I don't care about them, or I think I don't care about them. But then at the end, when you get that 2 paragraphs about what happens to Hugh, when you get those 2 paragraphs about what happens to Astrid, that makes the journey worth the whole thing for me. So I was fine with Jamie. I was not bored on the reread at all with him.
Mike, we were joking over text about we were kind of making fun of all the "Hang On Sloopy" or whatever songs that King is, or see, I called him King, that Jamie's playing here. But then I was just kind of thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, my version of this would just be like Goo Goo Dolls songs.
Exactly. I'm telling you, oof.
So I'm gonna write my version, and it'll just be Goo Goo Dolls and Third Eye Blind and Cake. Well, Cake still.
We're playing Gin Blossoms. That would be mine.
Gin Blossoms is good.
Everything starts with E.
I kind of wish that he was working at a production studio where, he was working with like Haim and
Haim.
Tame Impala.
I wish he was working with Charlie XCX and.
Hey, we get a Rihanna. No. We get a Rihanna.
Yeah,
mention.
We do.
He mentions her in the Institute too. Yeah, it's one of his few modern pop culture touches.
Yeah,
what's up with this Rihanna?
Yeah. This Rihanna character. Mel, what did you think of? Oh wait, Mike, you go ahead. Mike, what did you think of Jamie?
No, go for it first.
Okay, Mel, what do you think of
Jamie? I like him just fine. I think he is an ambassador more than he is a force in this book, and that's totally fine. He's a normal guy. I think like Mike, or I don't know, maybe the effect is the same as the one Mike has, but I get most frustrated when the book seems to be trying to flatten Jamie with a certain type of, moral, some sort of allegory to fit him into, and he's just a guy and life is just life. And I think King really did want to write a very emotionally real, slightly boring but very relatable guy, and that's what you got to do.
Yeah, and see, I agree with you, and this is what I like about Jamie is that King, I don't feel like King is trying to convince me or get me to like him he is in so many of his other books. I think maybe just because I'm coming off Mr. Mercedes, we talked about that, and I feel like that book is so sweatily trying to get me to love Bill Hodges and Holly and Jerome and all these other characters who I all find mostly insufferable. And also just the fact that I like that Jamie is only moderately talented. I feel like King has this habit of every character is the most brilliant person at what they do.
They're a great dancer, It's
okay. Or in Mr. Mercedes, just the fetishization of Jerome's intelligence is almost uncomfortable. And he kind of does that with Bree in this too. It's she can go and she can do anything she wants.
He's very get out.
God, Bree.
And it's just all right. But I like that Jamie. Yeah, I agree. He's kind of boring. He's kind of simple, and he's moderately talented, and I love that. Mike, what were you going to say?
Well, it's because King's self-deprecating himself, and this is King.
Yes.
I mean, even just his insistence on the E, the E note. It's if you got the E note, you could play anything. And it's I know that's certainly something he's talked about with his own music. I think he's even said it to us when we started itching at the music. He was like, I play this and that, because we asked him about the Rock Bottom Remainers and all. And he says he was pretty aware about the, I'm not, great. I'm not, he doesn't even think he's good, but he can do it. And I do like that aspect of Jamie. I think the issue that I have with this is that this is a duo story, right? In the sense, it's a
two-hander.
It's a two-hander. And I think about other two-handers that I like, and so there are two examples I think of. So one is *Halt and Catch Fire*, right? I love that show. I've talked about that show nonstop on this series. In this case, Scoot McNairy is the Jamie, right? And a grounded character that that we kind of relate to and has some interesting stuff. Having said that, whenever Lee Pace walks in and hangs out with Scoot McNairy, all I can think about is, wow, Lee Pace is really fucking cool. I want to hang, what's he up to? And then, but the thing is that every once in a while he comes and weaves in, and then they work together, and they weave and they work together. And it's those moments that I really love, because it's that's when the story is alive.
Yeah.
And so, but then again, it's on his own. I still love the solo Scoot / Gordon bottle episodes. Those are fun. I think there was maybe one or two moments alone with Jamie where I was like, oh, okay, cool, we got this. And then I don't know. He felt a little thin for me. And I think it was towards his graying years where I started getting a little too, I was more interested in him when he was a total fuck up trying to find himself. And I think I got less interested when he became, the constable Jacob, or not Constable Jacob, Constable Jamie, trying to figure it all out.
Well, King's so good at writing those like guys who are trying to get their lives back together.
I love that.
Like the beginning of Doctor Sleep with
or even
with
the Stan.
Danny.
You mentioned
yeah,
Well,
or Stan.
when he gets righteous, that's him aligning with some kind of code that the book doesn't even bear out with its own text.
Agreed.
So like it's just really weird.
Cool. I have one more quote here. This is from the Rolling Stone interview. Revival is about a rock guitarist. Do you think that could have been your path if you had a little more natural music talent? King says, sure, I love music and I can play a little, but anyone can see the difference between someone who's talented and someone that's not. The main character in Revival, Jamie, just has natural talent. What he can do on the guitar, I can do when I write. It just pours out. Nobody taught me. In Revival, I took what I know about how it feels to write and applied it to music. I just thought that was a nice little quote.
Yeah. Two talented bastards.
Two talented bastards. All right, let's talk about Jacobs. King talked about him quite a bit in interviews. He went on some morning shows, and those are always really funny because these people could not fucking care less. Like he went on Morning Joe, which, who is it? Mika Brzezinski, and then the guy
Joe Scarborough.
Joe Scarborough. These are like scum of the earth, these people. Like I cannot fucking stand them. And they are so bored while King is talking, and I think he can sense it. But anyways, I just want to say that interview is really funny because they are so disinterested, especially Mika. She's like a robot programmed to ask questions. But anyways, King described Jacobs as a mad scientist, and then he said he was thinking about Victor Frankenstein when he wrote this character. He said similar things in the George Washington University lecture. He goes, I'd never written a story about a mad scientist, but I wanted him to be a human being as well. And then on the Today Show, he described him as a character who was King says, I was interested in him as a guy with religious faith. I was raised Methodist. I think people with a lot of faith have a lot further to fall. So yeah, like King said, he wanted to write a mad scientist who had a good dose of humanity in him. Did you find his arc satisfying? Can you track the man we meet with who he becomes? Because we basically see him at 3 different times of his life, and he's a very sympathetic character at the beginning, and then he's kind of this hunched, deranged man by the end. Justin?
Well, the arc in this reread, I really caught this. It stood out when Charlie is showing Jamie how he creates the illusion of Jesus walking on water. Jamie refers to it as a quote magic trick, and Charlie says, quote, sometimes that's what I'm afraid of. And I think that's like him thinking about the actual story of Christ walking on water. Was it a trick, or worse, it didn't even happen?
Yeah.
So there's a glimmer of hope even at this point, this early on in the arc, that obviously just becomes more full of doubt as the story goes along. And I'll just say, like, especially doing this podcast, have we ever had an antagonist or a villain like this character?
I can't think of one.
Because we've had people that were good, but they were like possessed by the devil or something, or became a vampire. Like, there's nothing supernatural about where he goes and how he turns. And I think it's very rare in King.
Watching Lewis Creed, he's just...
that's a good comparison.
But even Creed, despite everything he does, is still always positioned as the protagonist. Like, he's doing bad things, but how Charlie just is absolutely, sincerely, genuinely sympathetic in the beginning. And even though as he turns throughout the story beats when we are introduced to him, it's not like he's a full-on villain.
No.
He never becomes the full-on villain. And
I think the book tries to do that. It tries to make him a full-on villain.
By the very
end. But what I'm saying, but by the end he is, but it's just such a unique track that he goes on. His arc is very unique in King's bibliography.
He's like, speaking of electricity, he's like your favorite arc of all time in the comics world, Justin, Magneto, where he's a good guy and then he's kind of a bad guy.
Eric, you don't have to do this. You're a good man. And every movie he like kills millions of people on the bridge. It's like, it's wild. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, and I think what I love about him is that you see the slow change. He's so sympathetic and actually very sweet at the beginning, and then in the middle, he's still like, he helps Jamie. Like, Jamie is someone who is struggling and he helps him. Sure, he uses his fucking weird science thing on him to heal him, his electricity. But at that point, he really doesn't know what the effects are. He genuinely thinks he's healing people, and he's scamming people a little bit because he knows these photos he's taking via lightning are not what he really promises them to be. But his villainy is kind of just more con artist or huckster than actually evil. And then by the end, we do get the ha ha ha, like lightning striking in the background kind of evil. But again, I think he's always at least somewhat sympathetic because what his character is driven by, he's a guy who has been driven angry and bitter by grief. And his whole life becomes about, disprove it or like showing the sham of the afterlife to people in an effort to, for feeling betrayed by God. And that is somewhat sympathetic, but I think that's kind of what this book is getting at, is that if you spend your life screaming and shaking a fist at God your whole life, you're going to turn into an angry, bitter person. And that's really what we see happen here to extreme lengths. But yeah, Mel, what did you think about Jacobs?
You guys are making me think about him more. I do think that the book, again, it wants to position him by halfway, three-quarters of the way through. Even earlier, there are hints of this. Like, the book is implying that the way Jacobs thinks about the common rube is bad. Like, he is too righteous. He's too superior. He thinks that they're all there to be conned. He doesn't really care what happens to them. I think the book is really trying to make a moral argument around that. And it sort of falls flat for me. There is something poetic about the ending being that, like, these people that he's helped all die. Like, that is a befitting punishment more so than something really hokey, like they all rise up and are actually better than him, or like blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Like, but there, I don't know. Like, I really am too sympathetic to Jacobs. I don't think the book sells me on him being unsympathetic enough by the end. I think, like, the senselessness of the accident, his sermon, his obsession with electricity, the low stakes of his scams and the high stakes of the healing, like, he's totally legible to me. And, like, I just would be on his side for most of this, I think. Like, yeah. I think the book really does struggle for me as a reader to position Jamie and Jacobs where it wants them to be for me in these like really opposed places. And Jacobs is so intriguing. Like, I wish we got to see more. I think that anger is like so justified and like so interesting. And Jamie's sort of just like block in the face of it is not interesting.
Sure. Mike, you're nodding. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think there's a pragmatism to Jacobs that's really alluring to me. And I think it is kind of juxtaposed. It's juxtaposed against the sort of like Dr. Claw sort of visuals that King gives us of him towards the end. It's just like, oh, his white hair and his piercing blue eyes. And I was like, yeah, but what he's saying is smart. Like, like, I get it. Like, you're trying to make him sound like, look like, he's, one of a fucking like Hammer horror film villain. But like, I all his quotes checked out for me. And so, and like the whole, the math that he gives, the Jacob-lytics of the idea that like, if, this many people got hurt, but look how many people we cured. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of what you hear from Pfizer and all the other the great.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah. Well, I will say this: the line that he has that I think is meant to be kind of a villainous line, or at least a very judgmental line, but that I thought was really appealing, and it's really stuck with me, which is where he says, these rubes don't want to know the truth. They want to be healed.
Yeah.
And that to me rang so true as someone who comes from an evangelical background and, still considers themselves at least somewhat to be a Christian. Like the idea of like, and I think Justin, you mentioned this, and Mike, you also did to some degree, the idea of a transactional relationship with God, right? If I am good, if I pray, if I go to church every Sunday, I should be healed. I should be given the things that I need to live a happy and fulfilling life. And I think, and again, I say this not in any kind of judgmental way, or at least I'm not trying to. And I don't think King is necessarily either, but I do think he is trying to get at the predatory nature of a lot of big box preachers, which is that they do look down on the people that that worship them to some degree. It's kind of like, Trump with his supporters. I mean, honestly, any politician with their supporters, like they think people are absolutely idiots, which is why they talk to us that way. But they know how to whip people into a frenzy, which is what makes them so successful. And so those are the areas I think I find Jacob's most alluring.
One time I went to a carnival and there was a state fair and there was a booth that was like pay $1 to see a giant rat, like a 3-foot rat, and I did it and it was a capybara and I was really pleased.
Yeah, I will say I love the juxtaposition of like preacher, like kind of like small town preacher to carny huckster to big box like revival preacher. That is a very, I think, valid arc, and it's kind of obvious, but it's also very true. Like you kind of have to be a sideshow person to be able to command a large church. All right. On that note, let's head into our next section, misery.
She died. She just slipped away.
Slipped away! Slipped away! She didn't just slip away! You did it! 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 You murdered my misery!
Penny!
Welcome to Misery. Here in this section, we talk about the stuff that we didn't love of this book. I actually didn't have a ton because I quite like this book, but I think mine will probably align with a lot of yours. So I'll let you guys kind of talk about the big ones, but I want to make a note of, and maybe this isn't necessarily like King's fault, but it took me back to an era. I'm going to read this here on page 196. Sure, I guess so. As long as it isn't a Justin Bieber concert. I'm a little long in the tooth for the Bieb. Oh, this is much better than the Bieb. Take a look. Just don't let it burn your eyes. So Justin Bieber jokes really take me back to an era of the internet that, I don't know. I guess it's better than where we're at today, but I think
Talk
Justin...
about tentpole revivals, though. Hillsong, right? Isn't he a big Hillsong
Oh,
guy?
yeah. He was a Hillsong guy. Yeah. But it's interesting. I don't know. Just like Bieber jokes. It just feels like such a time portal in a way I don't really need to. And then I'll just say at the very end of the book on page 402, I was just going to say, like, it's literally right at the end of the book. And he mentions The Wire, watching all 5 seasons of The Wire. This isn't, I'm just going to be straight. Like, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I will say, we talked about this a lot in our Mr. Mercedes episode, that it was around that book that he got fully TV pilled.
Yeah.
The man loves television. And I would say, I think we were keeping track for a while of all the TV references in Mr. Mercedes. It is relentless.
Yes.
And then, and I was like, this somber, dark, bleak, interesting literary book. And we made it almost to the very end without a TV reference. And on the second to last page, we get The Wire. Mike, Misery.
Well, I got another pop culture reference that, let's just say it made an enemy out of me.
Oh, Mike, we're going to agree on this. I
Yes.
guarantee. I know exactly what you're going to say.
It's on page 129, and he says, I dozed off on occasion. Heathers, for instance. That one was a nodder for sure. It's one of the best movies of the 80s.
Well,
Fuck you.
Is this King or is this Jamie? And it's kind
This is
like,
the thing.
I
This
think
is the thing
King.
with
I
King
think
books,
this is
man.
King. Yeah.
It's like we're deep enough in the dregs here. We've been doing this podcast for long enough. We read his Twitter account.
Yeah.
Hell, we talk to the man. We know when it's King and when it's the character.
Yeah,
you know,
this is King.
It's just too
That's a tough beat.
specific. Like, why, out of all those to reference, I don't know. But nodder. Like, I don't know.
He's talking about, and that's not nice because, of course, Christian Slater was in Dolan's Cadillac. It's somebody who worked on his works before,
Yeah.
It's tough.
It's a bummer.
What misery do you guys have?
I only have 2 things. I'm not kidding. That was one of them. The whole Brie relationship is a goof.
It's
but
bad.
I will say specifically, I always chuckled because he's really counting on Brie for all this in-depth research, and I swear it's all done on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
It's always like Brie found on Wikipedia this and that. Brie found on Wikipedia. It's like all he had to do was go to Wikipedia and find the exact same things that Brie found. So
that's just
those are my major things.
That's
I think.
charming boomer behavior, though.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny, but it was definitely.
But I will say
the research segment of the book.
The Bree stuff is just, and here's the thing, the Bree stuff happens around 60% into the book.
Mm-hmm.
So do you blame me?
Well, maybe they were lying again, and it wasn't that your subscription ran out, but that you said I'm out. You ran out of patience.
Maybe it's a little from column A, a little from column B.
It might be, yeah.
But I will say the Bree stuff is rough because it's just, okay, I will say it is funny to listen to David Morse read about it. Which, whenever he reads Bree lines, and I love David Morse, and it's not his fault, but he does put on a little bit of an affect.
There's a lot of white boy talk.
White boy talk.
White boy.
Like,
You white boys can be so dumb.
It's just, there's a lot of quotes that, like with that in the same realm. It's like a 243. Honey, if I may misquote Al Jolson, you ain't seen nothing yet, she said. It's just like, all right, give me a fucking break.
The classic Al Jolson.
Yeah. So, okay. Any others that you guys have?
That's honestly all I had really for Misery. Just, yeah.
Yeah, same with me. Okay, cool. Let's move on to Happier Pastures in a section we call Word Processor of the Gods.
And we're going to make a new rule. Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing. Whether you don't hear me typing, whether the fuck you hear me doing in here, when I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in. Now, do you think you can handle that?
Yeah.
Fine. Why don't you start right now and get the fuck out of here?
Here in Word Processor of the Gods, we talk about stuff we liked, the good writing, the moments that we said, hey, this is getting under my skin a little bit. On page 289, I just wrote nostalgia in all caps, and I mean that in a good way. I just found this really lovely, and I feel like this is the way I'm going to write about things when I get old. And I mean, I'm already getting there, but I thought of, this is when he's playing, he's back with his old guys he used to rock with in high school at the family reunion. They're the Castle Rock All-Stars. And, they're the Chrome Roses again, which was his early one. But
hell yeah.
But their current band is called Castle Rock All-Stars. And as they're playing, he writes, I thought of kissing Astrid under the fire escape. I thought of Norm's rusty microbus and of his father Cicero sitting on the busted down sofa in his old trailer, rolling dope and zigzag papers and telling me if I wanted to get my license first crack out of the basket, I'd better cut my fucking hair. I thought of playing teen dances at the Auburn Rolodrome and how we never stopped when the inevitable fights broke out between the kids from Edward Little and Lisbon High or those from Lewiston High and St. Dom's. We just turned it up louder. I thought of how life had been before I realized I was a frog in a pot. I shouted, 1, 2, you know what to do. We kicked it in, key of E, all that shit starts in E. And I will say, I genuinely got a little misty there because that was one where it snuck up on you. Like how much he really has shown us a lot of this person's life and how all of those the weird memories that stick with you as you get older. It's always stuff you didn't really think would. And I find that just really moving. And so that was one section I really liked. How about you, Justin?
I think, let me cut to the last part. The last quote I have here for the section is, there's one piece of optimism in the end, albeit not sentimental. Okay. This is the part here. Quote, people say that where there's life, there's hope, and I have no quarrel with that. But I also believe the reverse. There is hope, therefore I live. It runs kind of close to the end of Shawshank in some ways, but it's a little bit more pessimistic, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there's a similar sort of turn of phrase like that on page 294, which is around the same area I just read, but he says home is where they want you to stay longer.
Yeah,
and that was just really lovely to me. Mike,
and that section's even sadder when you think about the next time that he sees that 1-year-old and she's terrified of him. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fucking, that freaked my shit out.
Right.
Mike.
I mean, the whole sermon is pretty incredible. I think I do love the description of thunder, though. It's on page 86. It's with Jamie and Jacob. So the thunder is louder there, Jamie, and the clouds are closer. The sight of those storm clouds rolling in makes a person feel very small. And when a person is beset by worries or doubts, feeling small is not such a bad thing. You know when the lightning is going to come because there's a breathless feeling in the air, a feeling of, I don't know, an unburned burning. Your hair stands on end and your chest gets heavy. You can feel your skin trembling. You wait, and when the thunder comes, it doesn't boom. It cracks like when a branch loaded with ice finally gives way, only 100 times louder. There's silence, and then a click in the air, sort of like the sound an old-fashioned light switch makes. The thunder rolls and the lightning comes. You have to squint, or the stroke will blind you, and you won't have to see that iron pole go black to purple, white and red, like a horseshoe in the forge. And it's just like gorgeous writing for that, and just so much. It's just like sensory overload too. Good stuff.
Yeah, along the sermon notes, I had several just from the sermon, which I think is really well written. But I love this description of young Jamie watching and listening. And he says, "My mother was sobbing audibly, but I didn't look around at her. I couldn't. I was frozen in place. By horror, yes, of course. I was only 9, but there was also a wild inchoate exultation, a feeling that at last someone was telling me the exact unvarnished truth. Part of me hoped it would stop. Most of me wished fiercely that he would go on, and I got my wish." I feel like we've all had moments like that in our lives, where somebody is like the thing that we knew was bullshit, but we were sort of like inundated with it, or felt like we, it was part of the milieu that we had to occupy. And then when somebody punctures it, there's a thrill to that,
Yeah.
What else do you guys have?
I've got another one here. I think most people who have suffered great losses in their lives, great tragedies, come to a crossroads. Maybe not right then, but when the shock wears off. It may be months later, it may be years. They either expand as a result of the experience or they contract. And that reminded me of get busy living or get busy dying.
Yeah, 100%.
Really what that is.
That's really good. Mike, do you have anything else?
Yeah, the introduction to chapter 4, it reminded me of just how he wrote during Full Dark No Stars, just some of his strongest writing. On page 91, when we look back, we think our lives form patterns. Every event starts to look logical, as if something or someone has mapped out all our steps and missteps. Take the foul-mouthed retiree who unknowingly ordained the job I worked at for 25 years. Do you call that fate or just happenstance? I don't know. How can I? I wasn't even there on the night when Hector the barber went looking for his old Silvertone guitar. Once upon a time, I would have said we'd choose our own paths at random. This happened, then that, hence the other. Now I know better. There are forces. Just like I'm in. Like he's so good at just starting off these little sections, and
there's your foreshadow too there.
Yeah.
Well, now I know better.
Yeah. I mean, it's good stuff.
He does this beautiful this like tremendously sad juxtaposition on pages 384 and 385 in my book. And it's hard to capture just reading it, but I'll just say like it's after, he sees everything and all the people start dying, and the horrors like really have reared their head. And he says, the stacked storm clouds were moving away to the east, throwing down random forks of lightning as they went. Soon the streets of Brunswick and Freeport would be flooded, the storm drains temporarily clogged with chips of hail. But between those dark clouds in the place where I stood, a rainbow bent its many-colored arc over the entire breadth of Androscoggin County. Hadn't there been rainbows on the day Astrid and I had come here? And then the next chapter is all about like them singing in youth group with the Reverend's old wife on the piano bench, her ponytail swinging from side to side, and then Thought of Hugh and all these things. And it's just like, man, these really beautiful, simple, innocent things have all and the way he just paints this idea of like this random forks of lightning, soon the town would be flooded, storm dreams clogged with chips of hail. It's just such like a stark difference between like hell and heaven. You know what I mean? So.
Well, even when a rainbow appears in stories, it's supposed to indicate a happy ending.
Yeah.
Right? And it only reminds him of Hugh's prismatics.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's
so
not even
bleak.
the rainbow can break through the hellscape that is revival.
Do you guys have any other word processors?
I've got so many. I think there is some great stuff, and I don't know how much more time we want to dedicate to it. But there's some great nuggets here, some nubbins here for that matter.
And a lot of them, hey, we're not there yet. And then we have a lot of. I feel like a lot of mine too are also in the cemetery.
Right.
So why don't we head there now?
What's the bottom of the truth?
Well, sometimes that is better. The person you put up there ain't the person that comes back. It may look like that person, but it ain't that person. Because whatever lives in the ground beyond that cemetery ain't human at all.
Okay, here in the cemetery, it's funny because I really didn't have any cemetery until like until like page 333. It's like
Yeah.
when I actually started writing them down. I had a couple like, on page 163 of my edition, after he wakes up from, being cured of his addiction from the electricity. I've always find this creepy, which is, like basically Jamie is like, he thought just a minute passed and it turns out hours did. And then Jamie says, no time passed, except I guess it did, didn't it? And then Jacob says, yes, we spoke at great length. And the idea that just got under my skin, because the idea of like having not remembering a conversation you had or something along those lines is just terrifying to me. What do you guys have?
There is a suicide letter that was revealed earlier on in the book.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Not at the very end, but earlier on. So Charlie knows about this. And the suicide letter says, quote, I can't stop seeing the damned. The line stretches forever. Once again, the power of a reread is that what this is about.
Right.
And it's just that much more impactful. So
Yeah, that was the one I had that was just coming up. There's a lot of like little things like that. Like early on when Jacobs is like, what happened to my boy's face? That's really eerie. Just his reaction to
those
it.
descriptions were horrific. Yeah.
Just really creepy. I did find myself, like, I think we talked about this before on past episodes, but like Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, flawless. I love it. There is one moment in that where I'm always like, this feels a little like haunted house horror. And it's like when Shelley Duvall sees all the skeletons that are in the,
right. Yeah.
And it's kind of like, this doesn't work as well for me. I kind of felt that way with some of the dreams early on, like when he's like going back a house and there's like worms or ants or whatever.
Vintage King.
It's like, it doesn't, like there's so much, like there's especially now in hindsight, I'm like, by comparison, that stuff is just, it's like PG compared to what the shit you're going to unleash. And so it's kind of funny going back and thinking about those, because I had them like slightly underlined. I was like, cemetery? Like, I mean, I know it's part of like supposed to be a scare, but that stuff doesn't really hit me as much in this book. It's more of just like, it's like these stray one-liners like here that just stick with you. They're like little daggers.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Justin.
I mean, I'll just run through some of the great foreshadowing that we've been talking about. When Jacobs is at the fair and he's, speaking to the crowd, he says, electricity, although we take it for granted, it's the greatest natural wonder of our world. The Great Pyramid of Giza is only an anthill in comparison.
That's so cool.
And the ants, I was going to point that out. That actually reminded me a lot of Under the Dome, which is kind of one of the, I don't want to, we've talked about it, so I technically can spoil it, but I think I can talk around it, which is just essentially that the whole thing of that book is that, we are just ants under a magnifying glass of something much larger than us, and we are being toyed with, which is what another thing I love about Under the Dome is that the reveal that we are being toyed with by beings we don't understand, which is, I think, a theme that he's carried through to much darker ends in this book. And that just speaks to, I think, what you were saying earlier, Mike, about stories like 1408 and N, is that this distrust of what's beyond and what we consider to be God is rather a kind of malicious or malevolent being that is playing games with us, that we are little toys. I love that. I find that so unnerving and creepy.
Well, especially when you combine that with the power of the mind, and, intrusive thoughts are things that we're always trying to keep at bay. But what if those intrusive thoughts are things you've witnessed and are truths? And that's the case with so many of these characters in these stories. It's not so much that you can just keep these at bay when these are so much larger existential truths that you would never want to have open in the first place. And combining those two things and just knowing that the power of the mind is never going to let you get away from them, it's another type of terror.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
At the end here, or did you have any before we went into the end, Justin?
I mean, you want to describe how he describes the other place?
Ooh,
well,
so
I just have a few things that stand out to me because, obviously, we could read like the last, like all those pages,
honestly,
and they would
all work. I was trying to do like selections because it just lands so well. So, yeah.
Well, one thing that I'll just point out is just like the woman on the pillow, the woman he's ostensibly trying to raise. I do wish we got a little more foreshadowing for her. I feel like she kind of just comes out of nowhere, which is maybe fine, but she feels like someone I feel like I should have seen a little bit more of earlier, but it's fine. But the way he talks about her head pulsing on the pillow, growing and bloating, like just the idea of this head that is becoming misshapen. And then later he describes her head as being like or her face and her head being like a jellyfish. Ugh.
You gotta read Dreamers.
I will. I'm looking forward to it. I've got it on
rattle
similar.
Right. Yeah.
Some of the heads. The preamble before all the insanity is fucking great. It's like classic King. Let me read it real quick. It's 378. It's hard for me to think of what happened next, let alone write it down, but I must, if only as a warning for anyone else who contemplates some similar experiment in damnation and they read these words and turn back because of them. She opened her eyes. Mary Fay opened her eyes, but they were no longer human eyes. Lightning and had smashed the lock on a door that was never supposed to be open, and Mother came through.
Mother,
it's like perfect. It's just like, oh, here we go. It's the pre-show is done. Now it's time for the main event, and it's fucking great. Yeah.
Maybe that's another reason why he thanks Robert Bloch at the beginning, because of the character Mother in this, and of course Mother permeates Psycho. So there you go.
Oh yeah. I didn't even make that connection.
Yeah. I really just did though. It didn't happen earlier. I can't take credit for myself.
You know that scene, and I know that there's better examples of this sort of thing, but Mike, I know you and I have talked about it before. Like in the shitty Chris Kattan starring House on Haunted Hill, the one scene that is so fucking scary is when Bridget Wilson is filming and she sees like on the camera the doctors and everything, and then they turn and look at her.
It's so scary.
That's so scary. And like there's a moment like that here where Jamie says, my mind began to totter. It was a relief, and I almost let go. One idea saved my sanity, and I still cling to it. The possibility that this nightmare landscape was itself a mirage. No, I shouted. The marching dead turned toward my voice. The ant things did likewise, their mandibles gnashing, their loathsome eyes, loathsome but intelligent, glaring. Overhead, the sky began to tear open with a titanic ripping sound. An enormous black leg covered with tufts of spiny fur pushed through it. The leg ended in a vast claw made of human faces. Its owner wanted one thing and one thing only, to silence the voice of negation. It's like, that to me is so fucking scary. Like the idea that they all looked at him, you know? It's so creepy. And
it's like that great moment in 28 Days Later when he goes to the church and everybody appears to be just dead there, and he makes a rustle, and then somebody in the background kind of just whips their head around.
It's so scary. I was thinking about that shot the other day, and it was alone in the house, and it just like, it genuinely scared me. Yeah. It's just the way he stares. He's like not even looking at him. He's just like looking off in the distance.
There's another great detail here that makes me really believe that this is really happening and it's not a trick by Mother. And it's at this afterlife, or this other world, that the people there have bloodless wounds because they're already dead.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. It was just like, that was oof. Yeah, that was
that reminds me of Exorcist 3 or Legion. I just watched it last night, but he talks so much about like how he has to drain the blood and then he can cut it. Blood. It's not perfect, but it does the trick. But yeah, it's fucking gross. Just imagine slicing into something with no blood.
Oof. Nasty. I could go on and on again, honestly, but I know we have to. People should read the book if they haven't already. Yeah. Hopefully they've read it.
Well, I like the use of the phrase "insane colors." I could see insane light and colors, never meant to be looked upon by mortal creatures. The colors were alive. I could feel them crawling over me. It's like when I took mushrooms. So no, that's super fun. I think that's like what I have. Are you guys good? Moving on.
We can move on.
Awesome. Let's move on to Pound Cake.
After all you've been taught, everyone in bad, Mama. Everything in the sin. Come to your closet and pray. Ask to be forgiven. He's a nice boy, Mom. You like him. You really like him, Mama.
Here in Pound Cake, we serve ourselves a juicy... No, cakes aren't juicy. That's disgusting.
Like a fruit cake or something.
That's gross. Fruit cake suck ass.
Fruit cake.
This is interesting. Before we get into this, I want to say that for the first time ever, I found a review that kind of touched on the concept of pound cake. I've never seen this before in a review. In The Independent, they said, King is the laureate of bodily decay, but has always written about sex like a horny teenager. This may suit Jamie the horny teenager, but proves cringingly awful in a seemingly more mature relationship with Brianna. And then she says, the critic says later, King's priapic excesses reach a peak when Jamie mislays his virginity on a storm-tossed mountain beside one of literature's most rudimentary phallic symbols, a steel pole that glows red hot whenever lightning strikes it. I just love seeing Pound Cake in the Wild, somebody discussing it. I mean, there's a lot we could talk about, but Mike, kick us off.
172, Wing Wang.
Wing Wang, I wrote that down.
Yeah.
I like young Jamie's understanding of getting somebody pregnant. Boys laid down on top of girls and wiggled around until they got the feeling. When that happened, a mysterious something called jizz came from the boy's dink. It sank into the girl's belly, and 9 months later, it was time for diapers and a baby carriage.
That reminds me of a scene from Singles when there's like Campbell Scott has a flashback to like when he's talking about women, and it's like, yeah, and when they touch it, something comes out. What? Spam. And they're like, ew.
God.
The iconic quote that I've joked about ever since I first heard David Moore say it.
Astrid Soderbergh. She had silky blonde hair, cornflower blue eyes, and little sweater nubbins that might in the future become actual breasts.
Wow.
And then I think on page 114, he talks about how they're not nubbins anymore.
We kissed all the way home. And when I slipped my hand inside her coat to cup a breast that was now quite a bit more than a nubbin, she didn't push it away as she always had before.
The ain't nubbins no more.
I got some Astrid stuff.
Yeah, let's go. Hit me with it.
When it's just the cheekiness that he just loves to do. It's like, oh my God, does it hurt, Astrid? Does it? No, it's wonderful. I think you can do it now. I did. We did. Just the...
we did, yeah.
It's always we did. It just, it's very, that's like the conceit of Pound Cake for us. So it's just
exactly
like that. We had 2 slices or something.
Well, there's another one like that. When he's with Bree, he says, I need you to find out where he's hanging his hat these days. I can do that. She set her laptop aside and reached under the sheet. But I like to do something else first, if you ever mind.
I was.
It's classic. Absolutely
that
classic.
Is Pound Cake. I mean, that is the, yeah, you're right, Mike. That's it.
Okay, here we go.
The chapter has to end with, yes, I said, what do you think I said? One of those.
Like there's going to be a circle that goes like the darkness, like that comes in.
It's
like,
literally
zeroes in.
It's literally the smirking emoji that we do.
Mm-hmm.
He uses schlong. Just one last one.
Mm-hmm.
He says schlong like amid a very serious scene, which is always very funny to me. I can't find the exact quote.
It's elderly schlong.
Elderly schlong. Oh yeah, I didn't want to see his elderly schlong. It's like so fucking funny when he does that.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's a lot of good Pound Cake, but we don't want to overdo it. Any last ones before we move on?
Sweater nubbin.
Okay, cool. King's Dominion, baby.
There's another world out there. I know there is.
There's a lot of fun King's Dominion here.
No, round robin it, or?
Yeah, Justin go, and then Mike, and then me.
The Road Rocket has the number 19 on it, and it gets totaled on its first lap.
There's a mention of Roboshod. I looked that up, and it's the guy, the same name of the guy who crashes into the dome and Under the Dome.
Oh my God, good catch.
Nice.
May, Oklahoma is mentioned. That's where Tom Cullen lives in The Stand.
Man, that's a good one. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Charlie's Residence in the 2000s is near a landmark that's a rock spray painted with Metallica rules. Metallica's second album, Ride the Lightning, features the song The Call of Cthulhu, which is based on the Lovecraft story.
Wow, that's okay. That had to have been intentional for sure.
It had to be intentional, yeah. And right when he said Metallica, I went, Ride the Lightning, Call of Cthulhu.
I mean,
Mike, what do you got?
The mention of Joyland.
Yep.
I mean, so I want to pause on that for a second, just because when we think about the implications of this ending and what this says about the afterlife, and then now you apply that to the ending of Joyland and how that deals with the afterlife there, and where the child at question goes to, and where everyone else goes to, and that it changes that book
Yeah.
Like
unless it's a different where and when. Maybe in that universe there is a heaven or hell. Maybe, you know.
I mean, it's strange. It made me think like, okay, so that this is in King's Dominion. Does this change how we look at The Shining? Does this change how we look at? I mean, the implications of this ending just made me think of the larger identity of King's Dominion. Like, is this another world within the worlds? Like, is this going to be like Chamberlain, Maine of Carrie, where that's its own thing, or like The Stand is its own thing? Like, is Revival in the same world as Holly? I don't know.
I hope Holly go. No, I'm kidding.
That's
We need Holly to be among the ants. Okay. I'm just going to throw out a bunch of cities that are mentioned, because obviously Castle Rock is mentioned multiple times because it's, you know, in the same area. And I know Harlow, Maine, where the childhood stuff takes place, has been mentioned before. Lisbon Falls is talked about a lot. That's where the time portal opens up, is Lisbon Falls in 1122. And then there's also a mention of Ogunquit, Maine, which is actually a real place, which I didn't realize. I always thought it was made up. And then I feel like there was one or two others, but those are the ones I have written down.
And Lisbon Falls is real, and it's what Castle Rock is based on. And you can learn all about it by listening to my interview with Sharon Kitchens from last week or 2 weeks ago.
Check it out, Justin.
Jerusalem's Lot gets mentioned also.
That's
always creepy.
Specifically, the Mellow Tiger gets mentioned as well. Yeah.
All right, so this is a weird one. He mentions there's like a daytime show with Tom Selleck and Nicole Kidman.
I looked it up too.
I did. Yeah, I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find anything. I mean, it's like early 90s. So I imagine she's possibly promoting like what, like Far and Away or so. No, that was later, right? Or
so I think it's like 92, right?
So it'd been like Days of Thunder, maybe? Or I'm trying to think like.
It would have been like To Die For was 94.
Yeah.
But what's Tom Selleck doing? Quickly Down Under? Like I know
it's
going on.
It's a very strange.
3 Men and a Little Lady.
pairing.
I don't know. Anyway.
I was thinking 3 Men and a Little Lady. Like
that might have been 90. That might have been 90. But anyway, so
we already talked about like on the same page. You mentioned Dwayne Robichaud. You mentioned the 19 on the car, but they also mention a crow came down and roosted on the hood. And I feel like there's 2 mentions of the crow, and then there's also a mention in that same one of the evil eye, which reminds me of the Crimson King. Right. So I was thinking of Randall Flagg, Crimson King, and then so all these things like on one page, he had just kind of a little round robin there, which made me laugh because that's the same one as the Robichaud one, which was neat. Justin, what else do you have?
So the woman that they do the final experiment on, her name is Mary, and it's explained to us that her mother's maiden name is Shelley.
Yeah.
And Mary goes on to have a son named Victor.
Yeah.
And so her last name was Mary Faye, so he's a Victor F. Victor Frankenstein. So that's where the names were coming in. But you didn't. I thought that was pretty obvious. I
didn't catch it, but I'm also an idiot. So.
You got the Mr. F.
So is your would you say that's more explicit than the Halbert and you like it darker or whatever?
Wait, which part is that?
Jalbert,
Jalbert.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But that's pretty fucking blunt.
I was so proud of myself. If anybody's read, which one was that? That's the nightmare one. It was
Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream.
Bad Dream. Yeah. If you listen to the episode, you know what Mike's talking about.
I mean, this is more scripture, but on page 63, let's see if this recognizes if it rings a bell. You might have gone upstairs to pray. Go into your closet and lock your door. Carrie?
Carrie, yeah. I can't believe nobody's mentioned one of the band names was the Gunslingers.
Yes.
I have it on my list.
I forgot about that.
You didn't say it, Justin.
Well, I'm still going, brother.
You're up.
And his band Chrome Roses also evokes Dark Tower images.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I did not think of that.
Yeah, there you go. Where were you on that one, dipshit? Where were you on that one, dipshit? What's the line at Happy Gilmore? Where were you?
That's it. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay,
yeah. The caddy's very strange.
Yeah.
Love the caddy.
Yeah. I'm your caddy.
I got
nothing
more.
else.
I got more.
The last one I have is 19 hours of his day. I think he slept or something like that.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did not see that one. Did not pick up on that one.
Page 301. Like Jacob's only for... Oh, wait, blah, blah, blah. Life is a wheel, and it always comes back around to where it started.
Ka
is a wheel.
that too.
Yeah.
Charlie's assistant lit out for the territories. That gets thrown out a lot in was it Talisman? I think
Talisman, baby.
Yeah, Talisman. Yeah,
love
remember
it.
Remember in Doctor Sleep, the movie, when Halloran just like randomly says, cause a wheel, and we all are like, yeah, and I'm sure everyone in the audience is like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, Anyway,
the movie's
thought
fun.
I'd bring that up.
That's right. Oh, Jamie's high school bandmate says that, quote, with a little practice, Jamie might be a little bit a better guitar player than Snuffy. And quote,
I was going to say that.
Is that a W.G. Snuffy Walden illusion? His age doesn't quite match up, but that's got to be.
That's pretty funny.
Nod, right?
We interviewed him on this podcast.
Yes, the composer of The Stand. Wonderful score.
Who's up? Mike, you're up?
I got nothing.
Okay. On page, the woman who does the lightning photo trick, her last name is Morse. David Morse read the audiobook.
Well, on that line of thought, one of Charlie's early electronic inventions was called A Jacob's Ladder, a movie of the same name. Was made starring Tim Robbins, and Tim Robbins, of course, was in Castle Rock Season 2. And Shawshank Redemption, of course. Yes.
On page 151, they talk about, basically when he's talking about his leg getting fucked up, the way he talks about it, he says, you try standing on a leg that's full of metal clips and screws for 3 hours a night. Like, that just makes me think that's probably something similar to what happened to King.
Right.
I've got a big Kingston, or maybe room 2371. On page 164 of my edition, they talk about violence. I can't remember the exact, I'm bringing it up here, but okay. Yeah. His name was Paul Overton. He taught English at a fancy prep school in New Hampshire. Andy drove there and waited in the parking lot. And when Overton showed up, Andy beat the living shit out of him. This reminds me of the idea of a fight in a prep school parking lot in the Northeast. Reminds me of The Shining.
Shining. Yeah. That's a good one.
I've got one that holds up. Maybe more room 237. Jamie talks about seeing a play of the Buddy Holly story, but that the actor didn't live up to Gary Busey's film performance. Of course, Gary Busey starred in Silver Bullet.
That's right.
So, Mike, maybe the good news is that this imagined afterlife is in our world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a Stephen King writer, so that's right. We're fine. His stories are fine, but we're not fine.
No, we're not. No, this is going to be, I'm really looking forward to it.
Last one I have here is, and it's very dumb, but they mention a gun that is a Ruger. And that is the gun that Jake brings over from the world into the world of Dark Tower, which plays a pretty, I'd say a relatively significant role in that book. So I don't know. I always think of that whenever I think of Rugers. And then I already mentioned the Under the Dome illusion with the ants. And I think that's it for me. That's a lot. And there's probably some we missed. So please tell us in the meanest way possible on social media. Cool. Let's move on to our final thoughts.
Dad, can we go now?
You ready?
Yeah, we've been ready for an hour.
Okay, I'll be right there.
You said that a half hour ago. Yeah, my dad's weird. He gets like that when he's writing.
Here in Final Thoughts, we share our final thoughts, including a bright red Pennywise Clown Nose ranking and an MVP. I'm going to start with you, Justin.
You know, I've loved doing this podcast for the last, God help us all, over 7 years now. And we've read a lot of books in that time. We've read a lot of books that have come out since we started this podcast. And I can say with some confidence that this is the last very good Stephen King book, in my opinion, of the books I've read since.
You mean novels or all things?
Novels, I should say.
Because I know you liked You Like It Darker. So.
I do. You Like It Darker is very good, but that's a collection of stories. So this is the last really good novel by him, in my opinion. What a unique antagonist, not villain, and Charlie Jacobs, like somebody we have not seen before in a King book. And honestly, not a lot of books of this caliber where there's usually a pretty set villain who has been a villain the entire time. Like the arc that he goes on is very interesting. I think just having aged 10 years since then makes me have a better appreciation for Jamie's arc through the somewhat monotonous moments to the big, for lack of a better word, tentpole moments. There's also some just lovely writing. We didn't even get into some of the other great moments of this book. some of the genuinely the great prose, because there's just too much of it, in my opinion. There's some, especially in that first third, when he's growing up. Once again, we always make fun of King trying to capture childhood in the present, but he's got it fucking down for the 50s and 60s.
I know, right?
Better than anybody else that I've read, honestly. This ending, as I'm sure many people listening will understand, has stuck with me like few other endings of any book I've read. It goes there in a way that other books don't. Other books will say, oh, there is a hell, but there's always a suggestion of the heaven.
Yeah, there's always.
Whereas in this one, no. It's
We're all
just
doomed.
that hell. Yeah. There's something, and it's only because we always compare it to, especially the books that came after this, about King pulls his punches a little bit. Maybe gets a little maudlin, maybe gets a little saccharine. There's an absolute devilishly gleeful lack of that here.
Yes.
And more importantly, holds up on the reread. I found it just as rewarding, if not more so, on the reread, because I think the fact that I knew where it was going to go maybe also helped that journey a little bit more for me. So yeah, I'm going to give this 4 bright red Pennywise clown noses out of 5. A big recommendation from Little Justo.
And your MVP?
My MVP is Charlie Jacobs.
Love it.
With a sympathetic, quote unquote, villain. Yeah.
Mike.
Oh, I wanted to love this book. And I do. I think in parts. The bookends specifically, like I said, I mean, some of the most riveting and haunting prose King has ever put to paper. But I mean, I'm going to sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but I think just the journey in between is a little too thin for me. I think Jamie's chapters are a little hit or miss. And whenever we do get a chance to warm up to him, we're reintroduced to Jacobs and reminded of the stronger arc that we've been yearning for. And granted, that's the point. But I think that works better in a different format, like I was saying earlier, like a short story or a novella, not a novel where we have to really bide the time. And so I think that's where I land. I did grin like a complete sociopath at the terror that King unleashes at the end.
Yeah.
Because just as Justin was saying, like, he doesn't pull his punches. I look back in hindsight and go, God, I wish I would have read this before I interviewed him and asked him why he pulls his punches. Because now I'm like, fuck, this is a pretty dark goddamn ending. This is the darkest ending you could possibly write. I mean, what else can you do? Short of torturing someone, this is it. You are going to torture him.
Darkest ending.
It's the darkest ending you could possibly write. So, you know, I just think that he executed a lot of these themes and ideas a little stronger in his short stories. You know, the ones I mentioned, and 1408, and especially The Dreamers, which, I mean, you could make the argument that The Dreamers is a sequel to this, in a way. But anyway, I think I'm going to give this 3.5 Pennywise Clown Noses. Yeah, and I am worried that this is the last that we cover. But I'm holding out hope for Bizarre Bad Dreams. It's the last short story collection I could cover, so I'm excited for that one. So, and my
MVP, Mike?
My MVP has got to be. Let me think. I wanted to think about this as a fun one. I kind of like the assistant that Charles Jacobs. Yeah, the one who's like eating waffles and stuff.
Yeah,
he seems pretty cool. Like, and he had the right idea. He left. He's like, fuck this place.
He's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's like just biding his time.
The MVP of the whole
book.
This is like giving Andre Iguodala the Finals MVP in 2015. It's like, you know, it's Seth Curry. Seth Curry.
Oh, it's Jacobs, but I do appreciate his assistant who's like dealing with, you know, Jamie, and then also just deals with Jacobs. I mean, could you imagine being stuck in that house all day? It'd be annoying. I'd be.
He did do a good job. He did do a good job defending LeBron James.
Did a great job.
He did. He did a lot for the Miami Heat. That franchise, he is just great. But you know,
I got you.
All right, Mel, you're up.
Final thoughts. I was really pleasantly surprised by this book earning its reputation as one of King's best from this era. I loved how slowly it moved. I loved what you said earlier, Mike, about the structure and how we are introduced to very pivotal scenes by spending time with a lived-in family. Like, that's such an underrated skill of King's, and I think it shines here more than in many other books of his I've read. Just the way he can move plot forward by also gaining intimacy with the characters that you that you come to care about. Really, really well done. I think it does, as we've discussed, lose some of its luster when it tries to get simplistic about the hubris messaging. Like that's my big issue with it. I think it wants to be this like really deep character study of two men, and that's what I wanted from it. With that, banger of an ending, which really does hit for me and will be extremely memorable, I think, going forward. In the same way that I think, we've talked about N and how we recommend that to people and say like, yeah, that's gonna fuck with you. Like this one really does fuck with you. And I'm still thinking about how it deals with senselessness and how it deals with loss, and if life ultimately means nothing to such a degree that what comes after is even worse than nothing, like what are we left with, is such an interesting question to ask. And I really like that the book doesn't get corny with an attempted response to that. I think it really leaves us with a quietude and just the question, rather than like, I don't know, I guess you just learn to love people. Like it doesn't really say that. It's sort of just like, I guess you go to therapy and you try to like go every day, like when you need it or something. And you live in Hawaii with your brother, and you just try to, I don't know, you just have the question and you just roll it around in your mind. So for me, I'm going to give it 4 bright red Pennywise clown noses. My MVP is poor Khan,
Oh, yeah.
I think about him and his struggles and his astronomy. And yeah. And I love Astrid. Astrid's reveal of being gay later in life was like one of the best bits of incidental representation in King that I've ever read, especially after some like not so incidental bits of representation that I feel like he tries to do. Anyway, but it's gonna go to Khan, and 4 stars, and I feel revived.
Amazing. Thank you, Mel. All right, and for mine, I'm gonna say the audacity of this book. How dare it, to be honest. This is I love it. You said devilishly gleeful, because as bleak and dark as this book is, there is something playful about it, about how dark it gets. Like there's this impish quality. There is this sense of King just being like, oh, you think I can't fuck with you? You think I'm old and out of touch, whatever. It's
you like it darker?
I
should have said
yeah,
that.
I mean, honestly, it was like, it really, really, I was not, and this is why I had to fess up about the fact that I had lied about reading the whole thing. Because if I had really read this ending or heard David Morse say this ending many years ago, I would have been talking about, this whole podcast might be different. Because I fucking love this book. Like and I agree, it's imperfect. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Mike, because it's saggy in the middle, and the Bree love story is like cringe worthy, and it staggers along at times, I think, but it really locks in at the end, and it just left me. Like, I was reading it at an outdoor bar by myself, just like vibing. And then I just felt like chunks of my brain like falling like concrete, because I couldn't believe like how fucking nasty it was getting. And then when we get to the epilogue, and it's like I think that's what scared me the most, was the moment. Well, we mentioned earlier, the little girl who like shrieks when she sees him again is so scary to me. Like the idea that something fundamentally has changed about you that like only babies and dogs see or something, and like you are tainted. And he talks about that, the idea of being tainted. That's like so scary. And then just the idea of Khan, the idea that, because, he's like, oh no, it was a placebo when I did it to him. But the idea that for all these years, you have had this little ticking time bomb inside of you. And when that reveal landed, that was just masterfully done. So I don't know. I was so tickled by that. And then I just think the existential themes that I talked about at length earlier, the way that they dovetail with Buick 8 is really interesting. And I think represents this I don't know, this side of King that he lets creep out every now and then, which is that what about the meaninglessness of it all, which is so funny because he can also be so sentimental and so maudlin when he wants to be, but that he has this dark side and he lets it come out. And then when he talks about it in interviews and says, like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Like, I love that. I think that's just, it's fun that he allows this side of him to come out. So I'm thrilled by this book. I think it's great. I'm going to give it 4 Bright Red Pennywise Clown Noses, which is less than I've given other books, even though this one will probably stick with me longer. And that's just because, it didn't hold me consistently as much as maybe some other ones, but the impact of it, I think, will linger with me longer than others. And then my MVP is going to be,
you say Charlie's assistant again.
Yeah.
I think Charlie's assistant, the guy who ate waffles, I just thought he was really cool. And, no, I actually had another bullshit answer, and I can't remember what it was. It's been 3 hours, y'all. But if I remember it, I'll let you know. But, oh, wait, I remember now. It's God.
Or the lack.
Or the devil. Or the ants.
Mother.
I think the ants are my MVP.
Or that leg that comes through the white sky with the black holes or whatever the hell that nightmare's description is.
I can't say ants without going aunts because it's like from an old Sprocket sketch with Mike Myers. I can't remember what the context is, but they're watching a clip from a movie and they turn over a dead body in the woods and there's ants crawling in the guy's face. And I think it's like Mike Myers or his guest just goes, aunts! And so anyways, that's a good note to leave us on. This was a fantastic episode. Thank you all for joining me. And let's sign off. Long days. And pleasant nights.
I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. But you know you want somebody to treat you good.
You've made it to the end of another Bloody Disgusting podcast. Congratulations. If you like our programming, consider searching for other Bloody Disgusting podcasts, such as Creepy, Horror Queers, The Boo Crew, SCP Archives, Nightlight, Margaret's Garden, and more.